If you upset her, we're over, my boyfriend said about the group's only girl. I let the pick-me girl bully me, until they saw the truth. The guys exiled her. My boyfriend has a friend group of 3 guys and 1 girl. He warned me before I met them, and I still remember every word. If you ever do anything to irritate that girl, we'll break up. I nodded, attempting to ignore it, but within I was interested. Every group has that one beautiful girl that everyone protects and no one dares to question, and I've never been the sort to idolize someone like that. Nolan gazed at me with that solemn, protecting expression that caused my roommates to roll their eyes whenever I mentioned him. I mean it. Lena. Blair is not just a friend. She is the most significant person in my life. If you want to be with me, you must respect her. You'll watch out for her. I smiled warmly and kept my tone quiet. Obviously, your buddies are my friends. I am confident Blair and I will get along just fine. When I told my roommates about that tiny warning, they really lost it. You're the prettiest girl on campus, one of them blurted. And you're letting some guy tell you to be nice to another girl like she's royalty? You'll regret it. They walked out, furious. I did not bother disputing. Instead, I adjusted my hair, took Nolan's elbow, and said, "Come on, we don't want to keep your friends waiting." When we stepped inside the cafe, I saw her right away, Blair. She sat in the center of the table, wearing a white dress and a smile so innocent it appeared contrived. 3 men sat on either side of her, all of whom were gorgeous and appeared to be extremely at ease with her. That was everything I needed to see. She was the sun, and they formed her orbit. I anticipated her to be distant or arrogant, but instead she got up and raced toward me, clutching my hands as if we were already best friends. You must be Nolan's girlfriend. You're beautiful. Guys, this is Lena. Her joy was nearly overwhelming, yet the flash in her eyes gave her away. She was assessing me. Julian, the one wearing spectacles, greeted me with a short handshake and a false smile. Marcus, the tall one with the buzz cut, made no attempt to hide his distaste. I caught both of their eyes and grinned wider. Blair still had my hands in hers, and her voice was as bright as her artificial little halo. So, what were you thinking when you fell for Nolan? He's such a mess. Nolan laughed, ruffling her hair like a child. Do not tease. You are in one of your moods again. Then he removed his jacket and draped it over her chair. You always get cold. The moment froze. Everyone became quiet. Blair's head slanted toward me with a little pout. Are you not jealous, Lena? He is spoiling me right in front of you. Nolan's face stiffened as if he were bracing for drama, but I simply smiled, calm and courteous. Of course not. Nolan told me you're like his younger sister. Now that I've met you, I completely understand. You are adorable. Her smile froze for a brief period. The lads relaxed again, not realizing what had just occurred. Blair recovered immediately and pretended to blush. You're distinct from the others. Nolan's ex-partners always despised me. I attempted to be their friend, but they were quite harsh. I smiled, maintaining a pleasant tone. Maybe they didn't realize how sweet you are. Her gaze twitched again. Confusion, irritation, and something else. Then supper arrived, and I could sense the tension rising beyond Blair's immaculate exterior. She let out a gasp shortly after. Soup had spilled on her white dress. Before I could respond, Nolan pushed by me and grabbed a napkin. Blair, are you all right? Marcus looked at me, as if I had just confessed a crime. I knew it. I knew she'd cause issues. Julian crossed his arms. On the second day of meeting her, she had already mistakenly harmed Blair. Really? Nolan turned to me, his tone stern. Lena, please apologize to her now. Blair buried her face into her hands, but I saw it, a little, arrogant smile behind her fingers. Most girls would have snapped, perhaps even walked away, but not me. My eyes filled with tears. Only enough to glitter in the light. I'm deeply sorry, Blair. I didn't notice you when I reached for the soup. I swear it was accidental. My voice trembled just so. I genuinely like you all. I was just so nervous. I would never injure anyone, particularly you. Blair froze, taken off guard. Her small performance had just been outperformed. Of course, she replied, forcing a weak laugh. Do not blame Lena, men. She did not mean it. Nolan glanced between us, unsure what to believe. He held me awkwardly, shame flashing across his eyes. But before he could speak, Blair clapped her hands. Okay, let's forget it and go swimming. Nolan, you promised to teach me, remember? He paused. Yes, sure. Everyone immediately resumed following her lead, as if nothing had happened. I grinned silently as I watched her move ahead. She truly believed she had won, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. The pool area shone with soothing yellow lighting. I stood at the edge, watching Blair giggle as she dipped her toes into the water. She wore a floral swimsuit, modest but carefully designed to make her appear delicate, the type of girl who always required saving. Naturally, the boys swarmed around her. Nolan adjusted the straps on her swimsuit. Marcus tossed her a towel, while Julian stood nearby, arms crossed, pretending not to look too closely. I had seen this scene before. Different people have the same energy. The ideal girl, surrounded by her loyal guards. I took off my sandals and tied my hair in a ponytail. The sound caused them all to look my way. Blair was the first to notice. Her smile faltered briefly. Then she transformed it into something lovely and harmless. Lena, you also came. But do you actually know how to swim? Not really, I responded quietly. Perhaps Nolan can educate me. The air moved. Nolan froze, his hand still clutching Blair's towel. Blair tilted her head and pretended to think. Oh, but he promised me first. Remember, Nolan? You said you would help me practice tonight. Her voice was lighthearted, but her eyes were steely. Nolan paused. Right. I promised. Just give me a moment. Okay, of course, I replied, smiling. I'll get by. I went into the cool water, goosebumps rising on my skin. I didn't miss how the other guys looked, particularly Nolan. He tried not to stare, but failed horribly. Blair also noticed. She let out a playful yell and grabbed Nolan's arm, as if she'd seen a bug. Nolan, I am terrified. Do not let go. He supported her, murmuring something about how she needed to relax. From where I stood, the scene was almost sad. Her wrapped around him, a great example of phony vulnerability. Then a voice emerged from behind me. Do you need a hand, gorgeous? A tall, confident man I didn't know, possibly a student from another class, grinned down at me. Before I could react, Nolan's voice broke through the silence. She's my girlfriend. Back off. The guy lifted an eyebrow, looking between Nolan and Blair while clutching to his arm. Yeah. Are you sure about that? It doesn't look like it from here. The jab landed wonderfully. Nolan became red. Pay attention, guy. Hey, I said promptly, offering the stranger a pleasant smile. I'm fine, actually. He winked as he expressed gratitude for the offer. If you get weary of this circus, please call me. He gave me a slip of paper and walked away. Blair giggled behind me, her voice tinged with fake innocence. Oh no, Nolan. Looks like your lady is meeting new pals. Nolan's expression clouded. Lena, don't talk to guys like that. They only want attention. I glanced at him quietly for a moment. I wouldn't have to if I weren't standing here alone. The tension was so dense you could drown in it. Julian cleared his throat. Lena, if you don't know how to swim, I can teach you the basics. It's not that difficult. Sure, I replied softly. Thank you, Julian. Blair's smile disappeared. Julian, she is fine. You do not have to. But Julian was already in the water with me. Marcus joined us unwillingly, muttering something about simply keeping an eye out. As I got near, a strong ache surged through my leg, indicating a cramp. I gasped and lost my footing, sinking slightly. Lena. Marcus lunged for me, his powerful arms pulling me up. My leg, I muttered. It aches. Julian swam closer, his eyes sparking with concern. He gripped my calf softly and massaged it underwater to relieve the stress. The moment was innocent, yet the sight must have appeared completely different from a distance. Blair's voice cut through the air. Marcus, what do you think you are doing? He froze. Julian let go immediately, surprised. In the midst of the turmoil, I slipped back underwater for a little period. When I came up panting for oxygen, my lips accidentally touched Julian's. Blair's gasp echoed throughout the pool. The entire universe appeared to stop. I pushed away, coughing faintly but still out of breath. Julian seemed humiliated, glancing at the ocean rather than me. Marcus was silent. Nolan appeared enraged. Blair came up to me, her voice shaking with faux outrage. Lena, how could you? You are Nolan's girlfriend. You virtually kissed Marcus and Julian in front of everyone. I gazed at her, astonished by her audacity. But before I could reply, Julian erupted, his placid demeanor crumbling. That is not what happened, he said as loudly as I had ever heard him. She cramped up. She was drowning. I helped her. Marcus nodded, his voice harsh yet calm. He's correct. Blair. You're twisting it. Her face became pale, then red, and then pale again. For the first time, the boys were not standing alongside her. They stood in front of her, obscuring her view of me rather than shielding her from me. The balance had changed. Nolan looked between us all, his perplexity visible on his face. Julian, you are defending her. Julian turned towards him, water streaming from his hair. I am telling the truth. I remained quiet, wrapping a towel around myself and pretending to be shaken inside. I could feel the tide turning. Blair attempted to grin again, but it did not reach her eyes. You're all misunderstanding. I didn't mean that. No one listened. I walked out of the pool, my bare feet chilly on the concrete. I felt every eye on me, but it didn't matter. Blair wasn't as untouchable as she had been since meeting them. And I wasn't simply Nolan's girlfriend anymore. I was the girl who had survived her brief performance and used it against her without uttering a word. The next morning, the campus felt different. People always say that you can sense when rumors are circulating, and they're correct. Every hallway sounded louder. When I walked by, every whisper stopped. I kept my head up and pretended not to notice. By lunchtime, Nolan had sent me 3 texts. We need to talk. Please do not disregard me. I didn't respond. Instead, I visited the cafeteria. There she was, Blair. She sat at her usual table, surrounded by her boys or what remained of them. Marcus stared at his phone, detached. Julian was not present, and Nolan appeared to have been awake for some time. I strolled by them, tray in hand, and sat at a different table by the window for the first time. I didn't care if she noticed me. Several minutes later, Julian emerged, bearing his lunch. He searched the room, paused, and moved straight toward me. Can I sit here? Sure, I replied, attempting to sound nonchalant. When he sat down, the room became markedly quieter. You could almost hear the rumors spreading like wildfire. He gave a tiny, comforting smile. Don't mind them. I don't, I replied. I stopped caring last night. He chuckled gently, his gaze locked on his tray. Blair is not taking it well. She isn't used to losing. That made him look up. For a brief moment, our eyes locked, and I noticed something new. Not pity, not curiosity, but respect. Before I could say anything else, a familiar voice interrupted the silence. Okay, this is cozy. Blair stood near our table, her lovely grin intact. Her hands trembled slightly, but her tone was pleasant enough to fool everyone. Except me. Morning, Blair. I answered evenly. Good morning, Lena, she said, facing Julian. Good morning. Too. Julian sighed. I see you've switched sides. There are no sides. Of course there are, she replied softly. There usually are. She returned my gaze. Can I sit? You already are, I responded gently. Her smile tightened. I learned some intriguing things today. People claim you've been close to everyone in the group. Marcus, Julian, and Nolan. Rumors spread quickly when someone is desperate, I said. The color fled from her face for a short second before she attempted a grin. Do you truly believe you can turn them against me? I do not need to. You are doing it yourself. The air surrounding us froze. Julian lowered his fork carefully. Blair, perhaps you should. No, she snapped, then quickly softened her tone. Sorry, I don't appreciate it when people propagate lies about me. I leaned back, calmly, then perhaps stopped generating them. Her eyes blazed. You are not as innocent as you seem to be. Neither are you, I replied. The cafeteria was entirely silent now. You could hear the refrigerator hum from across the room. Blair stood up, her disguise finally breaking. Do you think you've won? I believe I have stopped playing your game, I remarked softly. She stared at me for a long time before turning and departing, her heels tapping forcefully against the floor. Conversations became louder, dirtier, and more speculative after she left. Julian glanced at me, half impressed and partly concerned. You have just demolished the queen bee in front of everyone. No, I replied, picking up my drink. I just reminded people that she bleeds just like the rest of us. He grinned slightly, but his tone was serious. She refuses to let it go. I am counting on it. That evening, I returned to my hostel and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone vibrated. A message sent from an unknown number. Do you think this is over? You don't know who you're dealing with. I didn't have to inquire who it was. Blair had just announced another round. And I was ready, because it was no longer about Nolan. It was not even about vengeance, it was all about finding the right balance and showing her what it was like to lose control. The next day, the cafeteria buzzed with unspoken anxiety. Everyone was expecting something. They simply didn't know what. I had barely walked in when I noticed her. Blair stood in the center of the room, gripping her phone as if it were a weapon. 3 girls I didn't recognize stood to either side of her. There will most likely be new recruits. Her replacements for loyalty were already lost. She recognized me immediately and grinned. That perfect smile that never quite reached her eyes. Good morning, Lena, she said cheerfully. Blair, you've been busy recently. I try to be productive. Her smile tightened. I can tell. You've apparently been connecting with everyone recently. Marcus, Julian, and Nolan. Impressive. The room fell silent. People pretended not to hear, Yet every ear was on us. Julian was already sitting a few tables away, keeping a close eye on everything. Rumors? Again? I asked quietly. You don't actually rest. Not rumors, she replied, raising her phone. Screenshots. A few gasps echoed over the tables adjacent. She turned the screen toward me, and I noticed what she had done. Fake messages. A few of them. Conversations I'd never had. Twisted language that made it appear as if I had flirted with all three guys and was planning against her. She'd made it flawlessly. It appeared real, but I was prepared for it. Cute. I murmured quietly. But perhaps next time, make sure the timestamps correspond to your time zone. She blinked. What? You forget that when you take phony screenshots, the metadata still displays your account. A rookie mistake. I took out my phone and scrolled till I found what I needed. I had created a backup the night before, and Marcus had given me a note warning me that this may happen. Julian jumped up, crossed the room, and came to a stop right next to me. Let me see, he said, taking my phone. Then he looked at Blair. You sent those texts, right? You claim to be her. Blair's gaze shifted from me to Julian, her disguise slipping. That is ludicrous. No, he replied, his voice low yet forceful. What is ludicrous is how far you will go to maintain control. Murmurs swept over the cafe like wildfire. Marcus walked in immediately away, his timing nearly theatrical. He froze when he saw us and groaned. The sigh of someone who has had enough of lying for others. She requested me to help her fake them. He said bluntly. She tried, but I didn't. The hush that followed was more intense than any shout. Blair's lips parted, but no sound emerged. Her three new followers shuffled uncomfortably, plainly recognizing they'd taken the wrong side. Did you really believe you could ruin me with a few phony texts? I inquired, my voice steady. You should have stuck to playing the innocent. You were better at it. I thought she was going to scream. However, she didn't. She simply remained there, transfixed, her hands quivering around her phone. Julian stared at her and then at me. Let's go, he whispered quietly. We walked out together, leaving a cafeteria filled with whispers and steps. I didn't have to look back to understand what they were saying. For the first time, Blair was not the focal point of the plot. She was the punchline. Later that evening, I saw her again. Not because I was seeking for her, but because she was right where I anticipated her to be. The rear yard behind the library was deserted, but for a lone man seated on a stone bench. Blair was alone, with no cosmetics or entourage, staring at her phone and gently shaking her shoulders. If you came to gloat, she replied without looking up. Get it over with. I didn't, I explained quietly. I came because I didn't want to win in this way. She laughed cruelly. You already did. No, I replied, seated at the far end of the bench. You have finally run out of someone to hide behind. For a long period, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, do you know what it's like to be taught throughout your life that you're unique? That people adore you because you are perfect, and that if you stop being perfect, they will abandon you. I glanced at her. She wasn't the untouchable princess anymore. She just seemed exhausted. Maybe you can finally figure out who you are when you're not performing. She wiped her eyes roughly. Do you believe it's that easy? No, I replied gently. But it is a start. Blair, for the first time since we met, did not argue. She simply nodded almost to herself. When I went away, I did not feel triumphant. I just felt finished. The game was ended. I assumed that after the cafeteria scene, everything would be settled. But life never ends smoothly, even if you win. 3 days passed with unusual quiet. Blair ceased showing up for classes. Marcus went to another study group. Julian kept his distance, although I occasionally caught him staring my way from across the library. And Nolan? He lingered, not with the same confidence as before, but like a shadow that didn't know where to go. One evening, as I was leaving the lecture hall, my name echoed along the corridor. Lena. I turned. Nolan stood near the steps, hands in his pockets, shoulders tensed. He appeared older somehow. Or perhaps simply smaller. We need to speak, he added quietly. What is this about? Everything. He ran his hand through his hair, looking for words. I am aware that I made a mistake. I just need you to understand that I never intended to hurt you. I did not move. But you did. He gulped heavily. When Blair stated you pushed her. I panicked. I assumed you believed I was the villain. I finished for him. Yeah, the honesty in his voice softened something inside me, but not enough to forget. Do you realize? I responded that every time she wept, you forced me to apologize for something I did not do. I was attempting to protect her. What source? I asked. Moving closer. Reality? He stared down at the floor. She always seemed vulnerable. I suppose I wanted to be the type of person who could keep her safe. So, what about me? His silence was the response. You didn't want a girlfriend, Nolan, I finally admitted. You want another project. He looked up with watery eyes. You are wrong. I loved you. No, I replied gently. You enjoyed the idea of me forgiving you. That broke something in him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the little silver ring he'd given me weeks ago. Simple and straightforward, the kind that used to feel meaningful. I guess this no longer belongs to me. It never did, I admitted gently. He nodded. Then, for the first time, he refused to debate. He simply walked away. And that's when I saw something weird. It did not hurt. It should have, but it didn't because, for once, the story wasn't about leaving me behind. It ended with me marching forward. Later that week, I saw Julian outside the library. He was reclining against a column, reading as usual. When he noticed me, he smiled. Small, quiet, and real. You look lighter, he said. I am. He closed his book and held it loosely with one hand. You handled the entire thing better than anyone I've ever seen. I didn't handle it, I admitted. I made it through it. He chuckled. That counts as handling it. We stood there for a long time, allowing the silence to flow between us. For once, silence did not feel heavy. It felt like tranquility. So he said finally, Are you finished fighting? I believe so. Good. He replied, moving closer. Because I was hoping we could start something that didn't include armor. I laughed. I hadn't heard that kind of chuckle from myself in weeks. That sounds good. He hastily replied, Just coffee, as if he was afraid to press too hard. Or jazz, perhaps. Jazz, there's a little spot off campus. Quiet. No drama is tolerated. I thought about it for a second before nodding. Okay, jazz. He smiled, and that simple smile seemed more genuine than any dramatic gesture Nolan had ever made. That night, as I prepared for bed, I noticed my reflection in the mirror. For once, I did not appear to be trying to prove anything. I just looked like myself. For the first time since meeting Blair, Nolan, and the rest of them, that was enough. The cafe was smaller than I anticipated. Brick walls, dim lighting, and the faint murmur of a trumpet fading into piano keys. It did not appear to be the type of setting where stories began, but perhaps that was the point. Julian was already present when I walked in. He rose to welcome me, a hesitant, unpolished smile on his face. You made it. I said I would. He grinned softly and motioned for me to sit. The table he'd chosen was beside the window, partially hidden, as if he'd chosen the exact spot where stillness might breathe. The waitress arrived and divided 2 cups of coffee and a slice of pie between us. We didn't speak for a while. It was not weird. It was pleasant. The music filled the solitude for us. Do you come here often? I asked. Used to? He stated that just when I needed to consider. And now he was looking at me. Now, I'd rather listen. Something about the way he stated it made me happy. I sipped my coffee and glanced out the window, watching the streetlights blur against the glass. It's strange, I admitted gently. After everything that transpired, I expected to feel hollow, but I don't. That isn't strange, he said. That is what healing feels like. It just does not get the recognition it deserves. I met his gaze again, warm and steady, with no trace of judgment. For weeks, I had been surrounded by individuals who wanted to manage, repair, and shape me. Julian simply wanted to understand me. Do you ever get bored of being the calm one? I asked. He grinned slightly. All the time, but if I start yelling, who will listen? That had me laughing. It wasn't the dramatic chuckle you give when you want to show you've moved on. It was smooth and real. You are not what I expected, I said. What were you expecting? Another Nolan, I admitted, someone who would strive to lead the story rather than simply be a part of it. He tilted his head thoughtfully. You don't need someone to guide your story, Lena. You just need someone who won't rewrite it. The words penetrated deeper than I intended. For a time, I forgot about the cafe, the music, and the people around me. It was as if the world had quieted down just enough to allow for honesty. Julian, I spoke gently. May I ask you something? Anything? Why did you defend me that night? You scarcely knew me. He paused, looking down at his hands. Because I saw the expression on your face, he said. The one who remarked, no one will believe me no matter what I say. I've seen that look before. I couldn't let this happen again. It took me a time to reply. You speak as if you've been through a similar mess. He smiled, little melancholy this time. Maybe I did. I just discovered that some individuals require a truth teller rather than a hero. I hadn't realized I had reached for his hand until I felt the warmth of his fingers close around mine. This was not a romantic gesture. Not yet. It was just a connection. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was performing a role. The music became softer, with a low saxophone sounding smooth and almost asleep. We sat there for a long time discussing nothing and everything. Our families, the way the campus lights usually flicker at midnight, and the fact that neither of us liked the cafeteria food but ate it regardless. He laughed and remarked, "You know, this might be the first night in weeks that no one's gossiping about us." I teased. "Give it time. They will find something." He leaned back, smiling. "Let them. Maybe this time the narrative will come true." When we exited the cafe, the outside air was cool and clear. He walked me back to my dormitory. Not too close, not too far, just enough. At the door, he paused. "Can we see you again? You just did. Do you understand what I mean?" I smiled. "Tomorrow, same time." "You are completely serious." He grinned. "Then there's a date." He began to turn away, but then hesitated. "Lena, thank you for showing me the true you." I didn't respond immediately away, since I didn't have to. He waved, put his hands in his jacket pockets, and proceeded down the walkway. The night eventually consumed him, leaving only a faint echo of jazz in my thoughts and the hope that something good was finally beginning. I hadn't seen Marcus since he exposed Blair in the cafeteria. He'd disappeared. No more group meals, and no more snide remarks from across the room. I honestly thought he was done with all of us. So, one late night, I received a text from him asking, "Can we talk behind the gym? I owe you something." I paused for a long moment before typing. "Okay." A single street lamp illuminated the back lot behind the gym. Marcus was there, leaning against a column with arms folded. He did not appear angry. Just exhausted. "You came," he replied without looking up. "You asked me to." He nodded slowly while glancing at the ground. "I've been thinking a lot since everything exploded." "What about Blair?" "About how we allowed her to control the group for so long." I did not interrupt. "She didn't even have to try that hard," he added. "She'd weep, and we'd all rush to cure it. It made us feel helpful and important, while also giving her a sense of power." He laughed quietly and without humor. "Exactly, I can't even dislike her for it. I loathe myself for allowing it to happen." The breeze carried the odor of asphalt and late-night rain. The silence was uncomfortable, but it was honest. "You were a part of it," I explained. "But you were not the only one." "No," he admitted. "But I was the most vocal when they accused you. That is something I cannot erase." I met his gaze. "So, why did you come here tonight?" "To tell you I'm finished with what?" "With pretending that remaining silent makes me faithful." He sighed, his breath weak. "I informed Blair that I am leaving. I told Nolan, too. I'm no longer doing the hero routine." "Good," I said simply. He looked at me, shocked by my composure. "That is it. No lecture, no retaliation speech." "I'm exhausted, Marcus." I stated, "I don't want to win anymore. I simply want to quit playing." He grinned slightly. "You and Julian make sense, you understand. He is the only person who has never flinched when looking at you." "And you?" "I treated you like a competitor." He shakes his head. "It took me this long to realize you were simply trying to survive the same chaos as the rest of us." I reached out and extended my hand. "Are there no hard feelings?" He glanced at it for a time before taking it. "No hard sentiments." Marcus no longer appeared to be the arrogant guy who blindly followed Blair's orders. He looked like he was learning to think for himself. We stood for a little longer, not saying much. Then he straightened up and whispered calmly, "Lena, take care of yourself. You, too." He walked away, vanishing down the side road leading to the parking lot. There will be no theatrical goodbyes or pledges, only unspoken closure. The next afternoon, I saw Blair again. Not in class, not surrounded by anyone. She was sitting alone on a stone bench near the humanities building. The notebook was open on her lap. For a brief moment, I considered walking past her, but something in me halted. When she looked up, there was no hint of hostility. Just quiet recognition. "You don't have to say anything," she said before I could respond. I remember how I looked. I know exactly what I did. I sat at the opposite end of the bench. "So, why keep doing it?" She shrugged, her shoulders tiny under a simple gray hoodie. "Because I wasn't sure who I was without it. Being Blair, the one everyone loved, was the only thing that made sense." For a moment, she resembled any other fatigued college student attempting to pull herself together. The type of person I might have liked in another life. "You still have time to figure it out," I explained. "Do you think so?" "Yeah. Simply stop seeking for mirrors. Begin looking for windows." She blinked. Then gave a small, broken laugh. "That sounds like something you'd post to Reddit." "Perhaps I will." We both smiled. Small, cautious smiles. When I rose up to leave, she did not stop me. She just said, almost to herself, "I hope you're happy now." "I believe I'm learning how to be," I responded. For once, neither of us spoke with bitterness. That evening, Julian texted me, "You free?" "Always." We gathered near the stone stairs outside the main building. The sunset was lengthy and bright across the courtyard. He gave me a cup of coffee, still heated. "1 cream, no sugar," he stated. "You are predictable." "Do you enjoy that?" I teased. "I do." We sat there as the campus fell silent around us, our shoulders softly brushing. No grand gestures, no performances. For the first time, everything felt still. "So what happens now?" he inquired. I interlaced my fingers with his. "Now we stop rescuing folks who never requested to be helped. And maybe we'll learn how to just live." He nodded and smiled sweetly. That's something I could live with. The sun sank below the horizon, leaving us in a type of calm that demanded nothing. It was not the beginning of another game. It was the beginning of peace. Time has passed. Not quick, not sluggish, but steady. Life has a way of going back to normal. Blair no longer served as the campus's focal point, even after it was demolished. She continued to attend class, sometimes alone, sometimes with a different group of individuals who did not treat her as princess. She smiled less frequently, but when she did, it appeared genuine. Marcus transferred to evening classes. I saw him once in the library, sitting alone, headphones on, head bowed over a notepad. When he saw me, he gave a tiny wave. It was enough. Nolan was halfway between regret and rebuilding. He began hanging around with other individuals, quieter ones who did not require protecting. Sometimes we would pass each other on the quad. We would nod, say hello, and continue on. There's no bitterness, just distance. Julian. Seamlessly integrated into my routine. Some days, we met for coffee before class. Other days, we studied in the library in complete silence, communicating with glances rather than words. He never attempted to fix me. He just stayed. One calm evening, we sat on the stone steps outside the Great Hall, watching the final students leave for the night. The air smelled of rain and jasmine. He offered me a cup of coffee, and I grinned since he always remembered how much I enjoyed it. 1 cream, no sugar. You understand, he continued calmly, that this is the calm after the storm, right? It feels strange, I confess. I waited for the next disaster. He stared at me. There does not need to be one. That is new. He smiled. Get used to it. We sat there in comfortable silence for a long time. The type of silence that does not need to be broken. Finally, I remarked, "Do you know what the worst part of all that drama was?" "What?" I forgot who I was while no one was looking. Julian tilted his head. "And who are you today?" I thought about it. About the girl who entered into that friend circle determined to compete, show herself, and struggle for attention. And finally, I spoke of the lady sitting there now, tired, wiser, no longer performing, someone who does not need to win. He gave a slow nod, his eyes heated. That is my favorite version of you. That night, I returned to my dorm alone. Not because Julian did not offer to walk with me. He did, but I preferred the solitude. The campus was nearly vacant, with lamps gleaming like halos down the path. My reflection followed me through the darkened windows. For the first time, I did not flinch. Everything that had happened, even the envy, games, and falsehoods, seemed distant today. Like a story that once belonged to me but no longer does. I was not the victim, I was not the villain. I was only the narrator. And it was enough. My phone vibrated as I approached my door. Blair sent a single message. "Thank you for not ruining me entirely." I stared at it for a while before typing. "You're welcome. Take care of yourself." There is no anger or satisfaction, only tranquility. I turned off my phone and climbed into bed. The world outside was peaceful, but inside my chest, something new was beginning. No pandemonium, no terror, no vengeance, just quiet. And in that silence, I realized the most crucial thing. The story was never about winning over others. It was about finally choosing. My husband humiliated me on our 9th wedding anniversary. I smiled, recorded it, and read his cruel words in court. 3 months later, I took everything. My husband Evan laughed as I lighted candles for our 9th anniversary supper. Not a chuckle or a polite grin, but a genuine contemptuous laugh that resonated through our Portland dining room as I stood there in the dress I'd bought just for today, holding a serving dish of his favorite cocoa van, which had taken me 5 hours to prepare. "Jesus Christ, Lauren," he murmured, going for his phone rather than the wine I had chosen. "What is this? Some Hallmark movie? We're not 22 anymore." The other 3 couples at our dinner party, his colleagues from the telecoms company where he worked as a sales manager, shuffled uncomfortably in their seats. His boss, Martin, cleared his throat. Martin's wife, Elaine, looked at her empty plate with a new curiosity. But Evan's coworker, Bryce, grinned into his whiskey glass, and I noticed Bryce's girlfriend, Madison, a 28-year-old marketing assistant, hiding a smile behind her palm. I'd spent all day preparing. The dining room looked just like the snapshot I had saved from a design blog 8 months before. Cream-colored linens, fresh eucalyptus in low-metal bowls, and those honey and bergamot-scented beeswax candles. The food had been planned for several weeks. Everything was meant to be flawless. "It's our anniversary," I remarked quietly, while still clutching the heavy plate. My arms were starting to shake. "And I am grateful, darling. I actually am." Evan did not look up from his phone. However, maybe reserve the romance novel aesthetic for when it's just us. "This is a bit much." Bryce burst out laughing then. "Dude, you're getting cooked by candles." I carefully placed the dish in the center of the table, my hands firm despite the heat on my face. 9 years of marriage. 9 years of romantic attempts were treated with growing mockery. 9 years of witnessing the man I once loved become into someone who seemed to intentionally relish humiliating me in front of others. "You're right," I replied, my voice surprisingly calm. "This is way too much effort." Something in my tone prompted Evan to look up. Our gazes locked across the candlelight, and for a few seconds, I saw perplexity flash across his face. He'd been anticipating pain, even tears, and certainly an apology. What he saw instead caused him to frown. I pulled out my chair and sat down. "Let us eat." The evening was filled with awkward small talk about quarterly sales figures and company politics. I smiled when it was appropriate, refilled wine glasses, and served dessert, a lavender panna cotta that I'd tried 3 times to perfect. Nobody complimented the food. Evan spent the whole of the lunch showing Bryce something on his phone. When our visitors finally left about 10:45, Evan untied his tie and went into the bedroom. "That went good, correct?" Martin was impressed by the presentation I mentioned. I was clearing plates in the kitchen, scraping $90 in organic foods into the rubbish disposal. "Everything went as it should have. You aren't furious about the candle, are you?" He stood in the doorway already wearing sweatpants and itching his tummy. "I was simply fooling around. You know how Bryce is." "I'm not mad." "That's good, because you were being a little extra tonight. I mean, anniversary or not, it is a Thursday. We are no longer kids playing house." I rinsed a plate with boiling water, watching red wine stains disappear down the drain. "You're totally correct. We're not children." That was the moment. That's when I realized Evan had no idea that his mockery had finally pushed me over an unseen line. He had no notion that the woman loading the dishwasher at 12:30 a.m., still dressed for her anniversary, had already started calculating how much his cruelty would cost him. What he didn't realize was that I had been chronicling every disparaging comment, public humiliation, and casual brutality for the previous 16 months. Not because I had planned it, at least not consciously, but because my therapist had advised I keep a notebook of occasions when I felt diminished. That journal was about to prove quite handy. "I'm going to bed," Evan said. "Work meeting at 8. Don't forget to turn off all those ridiculous candles." I gazed at the candles still burning on the dining table, their light gleaming off the fine china we had registered for 9 years ago. We'd only used china 5 times, all at my persuasion, and each time he complained that it was too pretentious for a random Tuesday. "Actually," I said, "I think I'll let them burn just to see something wonderful turn to ash." Evan was nearly halfway up the stairs and hadn't heard me. Just as well. I picked out my phone and opened the folder labeled Household Records, which had 16 months of images, time-stamped messages, and dated journal entries. Tomorrow, I'd schedule an appointment with Catherine Wells, the divorce attorney my closest friend Naomi had recommended 8 months ago, when I first admitted, over too much wine, that my marriage was dying of mocking and contempt. The candles burnt down to stubs as I sat at our dining table, still dressed for my anniversary, and began writing a list of everything Evan had taught me to cease doing. Cooking lavish meals, proposing date evenings, purchasing thoughtful gifts, attempting to retain romance, and caring about his opinion. Starting tomorrow, I'd quit doing all of that. But I had also stopped doing something Evan had taken for granted for 9 years, pretending that his brutality had no consequences. I got up at 5:15 a.m. the day following our anniversary to go running. Evan remained sleeping, snoring into his pillow with his lips open. I stopped finding it endearing about year 4. By the time he entered the kitchen at 7:30, I had showered, dressed for work, and was drinking black coffee while reviewing emails on my laptop. No breakfast was prepared. There was no coffee boiling for him. No lunch prepared in the refrigerator with a message, as I had done every morning for the past 9 years. "You're up early," he murmured, opening the fridge and looked at the bare shelves, puzzled. Where is breakfast? I did not make any. He turned and looked at me. Are you feeling okay? Fine. I just discovered I've been wasting time doing things that aren't appreciated. I closed my laptop and rose up, grabbed my bag. There is cereal in the pantry. Lauren. Come on. Do not be like that about last night. I am not like anything. You were correct. I was being excessive, so I'm stopping. I moved toward the garage door. I have an 8:30 meeting. I will be home late. I was not home late. I arrived home at the exact same time, 6:45. For the past 9 years, I had arrived home every day. But I did not start dinner. Instead, I changed into comfy clothing and opened my laptop on the kitchen table. Evan arrived home at 8, carrying takeaway from a Thai restaurant 3 blocks away. I figured you'd be too sleepy to cook, he remarked, placing down the bag. I got your usual, thanks. I did not look up from my screen. We ate silently. He kept looking at me, apparently waiting for me to inquire about his day or tell him about mine. I did neither. After supper, he sat down on the couch with a beer and turned on the basketball game. I went upstairs to our spare bedroom, which I had been gradually transforming into a home office, and closed the door. At 9:45, I heard him call up the stairs. Are you about to go to bed soon? Finish some work. I was actually creating a detailed spreadsheet. Column A is the date, column B is the incident description, column C is the number of witnesses, column D is the financial impact, column E is the category of emotional injury, and column F is the response pattern. 16 months of data required 3.5 hours to correctly organize. Naomi contacted me while I was working. How was your anniversary dinner? This was just what I needed. That does not sound nice. I scheduled an appointment with Catherine Wells for Friday afternoon. Can you join me? There was silence on her end. Finally, what time? Friday afternoon. Catherine Wells sat across from me and Naomi in her downtown Portland office, reading the journal I'd printed and bound. She was 54, had a gray hairstyle and a sharp bob, and wore reading glasses that she pushed up her nose as she turned pages. This is remarkably detailed. She commented after 20 minutes. You've documented patterns of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and public humiliation with witnesses. She turned her head toward me. How long have you been planning to leave? I didn't realize it. The journal was intended for therapeutic purposes. But after last night, I explained the anniversary dinner, Bryce's laughter, Madison's smirk, and Evan's apparent disregard for the effort I had made. Catherine nodded slowly. And what exactly do you want? Everything he believes he is entitled to. I contributed 65% of the down payment for the house, but he requested that his name be included on the deed as well. A fair split of retirement accounts. And I want him to know just what he has lost. The final section is not legally actionable. I understand, but the first bits are. She smiled for the first time. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, but we may undoubtedly argue for an equitable division based on actual contributions. Your documenting of his practice of reducing your contributions to the home would be beneficial. Do you keep financial records? I brought out another folder. Every receipt from the last 9 years, every food bill, every house improvement, and every utility payment, color-coded by payer. Catherine smiled wider. You're my favorite kind of client, the one that arrives prepared. Evan didn't notice anything different over the first week. He complained about having to buy lunch every day and asked twice when I was going grocery shopping, but he never asked why I had stopped cooking, doing his laundry, or organizing our social calendar. By week 2, he was irritated. Are you on a strike? No, I just stopped doing anything extra. Lauren, we are married. Married individuals take care of one another. I looked up from my laptop. We were in the living room, with him on the couch and me in the armchair I had relocated from the bedroom. You're totally correct. When was the last time you cared for me? He blinked. I work 58 hours a week to pay for this house. I work 56 hours per week and earn $19,500 more per year than you. Try again. His cheeks reddened. What the hell is your problem lately? I do not have a problem. I'm simply no longer solving yours. He gave me a long glare before picking up his phone and leaving the room. 6 minutes later, I overheard him on the phone with Bryce, whining about how I had suddenly had a cold for no reason. I got out my phone and entered the date, time, and precise words into my spreadsheet. Then I messaged Catherine. He is becoming increasingly agitated. Should I speed up our timeline? Her response was quick. No, let him continue to show you who he is. More evidence is always preferable. 4 weeks after our anniversary, Evan's mother called. Lauren, honey, Evan says you two are having some issues. I was at my computer at work, reading Q4 marketing predictions. Susan, did he tell you what the problems were? He said that you had stopped cooking and were being distant. Is everything okay? Everything is fine. I simply decided to reallocate my time more efficiently. There was a pause. Marriage takes effort, sweetie. When things become difficult, you cannot simply give up. You're totally correct. I tried for 9 years. I'm exhausted now. That sounds really selfish. I felt my jaw tightening. Susan has always taken Evan's side. When he forgot my birthday 4 years in a row, she warned me that men weren't good on dates. When he criticized my elevation to director in front of her entire bridge club, she accused me of being overly sensitive. Susan, I appreciate your concern, but this is between Evan and myself. He's my son. If you are mistreating him, I need to leave. Work deadline. I ended the call and promptly documented it, including the date, time, and witnesses, as well as Evan's story that I was the problem. Evan got home that evening and walked straight upstairs without saying anything to me. He came back down 20 minutes later, carrying 3 of my outfits on his arm. My mother wants to know why you aren't wearing the clothes she purchased you for Christmas. I looked at Susan's gowns, pricey designer pieces, and styles I'd never choose because they were more feminine than my typical business attire. I gently thanked her before hanging them at the back of my closet. I do not like them. She paid $950. I did not ask her to. Evan's face turned red. You are being purposefully difficult. She's attempting to build a relationship with you, but you keep pushing her away. By not wearing the clothes she purchased without first asking what I wanted. By being resentful with everything lately. There it was. It was the first time he had called me that directly. He had said worse to his friends. I'd overheard him on phone calls and heard Bryce laugh when Evan complained about his controlling wife, but this was the first blatant attack. I got out my phone and launched the voice memo app. Say it again. I want to be sure I understood you accurately. He gazed at the phone and then at me. Are you taping this? I asked you to repeat what you had just called me. I did not. You are twisting everything. I am trying to save our marriage, and you are acting like a lawyer. Interesting wording. I stood up and went into my office, locking the door behind me. He punched it twice. Lauren, open the door. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent Catherine a voice memo with a subject line, Exhibit H, verbal abuse escalation. She responded 20 minutes later. Perfect. Continue documenting. How is the separate bank account coming? I opened it 3 weeks ago and used my work address for statements. My next 3 paychecks would go right into it. Oregon was a community property state, but we'd married with separate accounts, and I'd been gradually transferring funds into joint accounts for years. Moving it back out was entirely lawful. Catherine had proposed a financial separation. Make sure you have immediate access to funds he cannot touch, she advised. Men like Evan frequently try to exert control through money when they feel they are losing control of the narrative. She had good reason to be concerned. When I checked our joint account that night, Evan had moved $18,000 to his personal account. Half of what we'd saved for a trip to Ireland next spring. Every time I mentioned a vacation, he whined about how expensive and inconvenient it was. I screenshotted the transaction and emailed it to Catherine with the subject line. Exhibit I, financial manipulation in preparation for divorce, because I hadn't informed him yet. That was Catherine's strategy. Let him show his entire hand before we show ours. Right now, he believes you're simply being difficult. He is unaware that you are creating a case. By week 5, Evan had ceased conversing with me unless absolutely necessary. He started getting home later, sometimes not until 10 or 11 p.m. He said he was working late, but his Lexus was parked outside Bryce's apartment 3 times when I drove by after yoga class. I did not confront him. I simply recorded the times, photographed his automobile, and noted that he had left filthy dishes in the sink and expected me to clean them. I stopped cleaning them. By week 6, we didn't have any clean plates. Evan eventually ran the dishwasher incorrectly, loading it as if he'd never seen one. He broke a wine glass and placed the pieces on the bottom rack. My mother called next. Susan says, you and Evan are having problems. Susan talks excessively. Lauren Ann, it isn't fair. She's concerned about her son. Quite frankly, so am I. You aren't acting like yourself. I'm acting just like myself. That is the problem. Evan never liked who I really was. He liked the person I pretended to be. Marriage is about compromise. I've been making compromises for 9 years. I am done. My mother, father, and I raised you much better than this. You don't give up when things get tough. You also taught me not to tolerate rudeness. Remember what you said when I was 16 and that lad called me stupid? You told me not to allow anyone make me feel small. Evan has been making me feel tiny for 9 years, and you expect me to compromise? Silence, then quiet. Has he been harsh to you? Yes. Why haven't you said anything? Would you've believed me? Or would you have told me I was overly sensitive, and that men express love differently? That I should try harder? Another prolonged stillness. I need to think about it. She hung up. That night, Evan returned home at 7 p.m. for the first time in weeks. He was holding grocery store carnations, the cheap variety that die in 4 days. I think we should discuss, he replied, laying them on the counter. About us, he made a vague gesture toward the kitchen, which I had completely stopped cleaning. Dishes were stacked in the sink. The trash can was overflowing. The floor hadn't been swept for 7 weeks. This is not typical. You're correct. For 9 years, I kept this house running while working full-time, and you treated me like I was your maid. That was not normal either. I never asked you to do all of that. You never volunteered to help because you never inquired. I should not have to ask my husband to be an equal partner in our household. He passed his hand through his hair. Lauren, what do you want from me? An apology? Fine. I apologize. I did not appreciate everything you did. But, he motioned at me, at the kitchen, at the distance between us, this isn't going to solve anything. You're correct again. This doesn't solve anything. I took the divorce papers from my bag and placed them on the counter, next to his cheap flowers. But they will. His face turned white. What? I'm filing for divorce. You will be officially served on Monday, but I wanted to give you advance notice as a courtesy. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. I consulted with a lawyer. I have documented your history of emotional abuse, public humiliation, and financial manipulation. Although Oregon is a no-fault state, we will continue to push for a fair allocation of marital assets based on actual contributions. Evan's hands shook as he scooped up the papers. This is ridiculous. You are insane. All because I laughed at some candles. No, because you spent 9 years convincing me that nothing I did could ever satisfy you. The candles were exactly what made me decide to give up. Evan hired a lawyer within 36 hours. Jonathan Pierce was a tenacious litigator who specialized in defending men in divorce cases. I knew this because Catherine had predicted exactly who Evan would hire. Apparently, Bryce had a nasty divorce 3 years ago and used Pierce. He's about to go for the throat. Catherine cautioned me in our Monday meeting. Pierce's goal has always been to portray the wife as unstable, vengeful, or both. He'll argue that you abandoned the marriage without cause and are attempting to steal assets Evan legitimately acquired. Except I have proof for everything. Proof helps, but expect him to twist it. Pierce does an excellent job of making documentation appear to be an obsession. She was correct. Evan filed a counter motion on Wednesday, saying that I had been covertly plotting to leave him for over a year, that I had managed finances to benefit myself, and that my abrupt withdrawal of affection and household contributions constituted desertion of marital vows. I read the filing at my desk during lunch and then sent it to Catherine with a simple message. He gave us just what we needed. Her answer? Yes. I'll see you Friday at mediation. In Oregon, divorce proceedings had to be resolved through mediation before moving to trial. Evan arrived with Pierce, both dressed in fine suits that exuded confidence. Evan would not look at me directly. Marilyn Foster, a tired-looking 60-year-old woman, served as the mediator. She'd been doing this for 30 years, and had the look of someone who'd seen every type of human pettiness. Let's start with assets, she suggested. You jointly own a $510,000 home. The current mortgage balance is $305,000. The equity is $205,000. Pierce jumped in. My client seeks the marital home. He is offering to buy out Mrs. Walsh's share at fair market value. I want the house, I responded gently. I paid 65% of the down payment with my personal savings. I have bank documents to prove it. Pierce smiled. Gifts exchanged during marriage cannot be returned. Catherine slid a document across the table. Except for my client's documentation, she specifically mentioned in an email 3 months before the home purchase that her bigger down payment would be reflected in equity distribution if the marriage ended. Mr. Walsh said, and I quote, "Whatever makes you happy, babe. I'm not planning on divorcing you anyway." That's acknowledgement of the condition. Evan's face flushed. You retained the email for 9 years. I save all financial correspondence. I stated it was an excellent business practice. Marilyn reviewed the email. This establishes clear intent. Continue. Pierce wasn't smiling anymore. Fine. Let's talk about retirement accounts. My client has a 401k of $102,000. Mrs. Walsh's 401k is worth $149,000. Because I contributed more. I stated that I make more money and had been in my current position for longer. State with community property. Pierce stated that all assets earned during marriage are distributed equally, regardless of individual participation. Catherine leaned back. That is true. So, let's talk about Mr. Walsh's truck, which he bought 4 years ago for $46,000 and funded totally with the joint account, despite Mrs. Walsh's objections, which were documented in text messages, stating that a new vehicle was unnecessary. Mr. Walsh responded by describing her as cheap and controlling. Evan murmured something to Pierce, who grimaced and looked through his notebook. We're also interested in discussing the $18,000 Mr. Walsh transferred from the joint savings to his personal account last month. Catherine told us. Done without Mrs. Walsh's knowledge or consent. That's my money. Evan replied. I earned it from the joint account that you both contributed to, Catherine said calmly. Which makes it theft under Oregon law. We could press charges, but we're willing to waive that if Mr. Ensure Walsh returns the full amount plus interest. Marilyn had been writing notes. Mr. Pierce, please respond. Pierce saw Evan, who was sweating despite the air conditioning. We will repay the funds. Good. Now, let's talk about credit cards. Catherine took out another document. Mrs. Walsh has evidence proving that she paid off about $72,000 of Mr. Walsh's credit card debt over the last 9 years. Charges include a fishing boat that he used twice, many hunting trips with pals, and what looks to be several $1,000s in strip clubs. Evan's face changed from crimson to white. These were client entertainment expenses. Catherine said something funny. Your tax returns do not show any of those deductions, indicating that either you committed tax fraud or they were personal costs charged to the joint account. Pierce was flipping through pages furiously. We need to look at these charges. Take your time. Marilyn stated. We have all day. The mediation took 5.5 hours. By the end, Evan had agreed to refund the $18,000, waive his claim to the property, accept a lower part of the retirement savings, and pay my legal bills. We strolled out to the parking garage around 8:30 p.m. Catherine smiled. That went better than I had imagined. Pierce didn't have answers to half of our material because Evan felt I hadn't been paying attention all those years. Men like him are always doing this. She paused near her car. He is going to be angry. Make sure you are safe. I'm staying with Naomi till the house sells. Good. Just one more thing. She removed an envelope from her briefcase. This arrived to my office this morning from Bryce's ex-wife. I opened it. Inside was a 3-page letter explaining how Bryce and Evan had spent the previous 6 years visiting to strip clubs every other Friday night, racking up thousands of dollars in expenses that they kept hidden from their spouses. She provided credit card receipts, photographs, and a particularly incriminating snapshot of a group chat in which Evan wrote, "Marriage is just a long con until you make enough money to trade up to a younger model." The date on the text was 3 months after our wedding. She learned from common friends that you were divorcing him. Catherine responded, wanted you to have ammunition. Evan apparently made statements at Bryce's divorce proceedings that she never forgot. I gazed at the phrase trade up to a younger model 3 months into our marriage. Can we utilize this? We will not need to. We've already won. But keep it. Sometimes knowing the truth is sufficient. The house sold in 4 weeks for $525,000. $20,000 over the asking price. A bidding battle erupted between 3 young families who saw potential in the house I had spent 9 years cultivating. Evan showed up inebriated for the last walkthrough. Naomi was with me, as was Catherine, and she had arranged for a police officer to be present just in case. You're really doing this, Evan remarked, leaning against the kitchen counter where I'd been serving him breakfast for 9 years. Taking everything. I am taking what is mine. There is a distinction, that's. You are already aware of this. His words were slurred. You were the one who planned everything. You twisted everything. I documented everything, also not the same thing. He pushed off the counter and took a step towards me. The policeman got closer. You were meant to love me. I loved you until you spent 9 years telling me I was stupid for it. I never said that. I took out my phone and played the recording. His voice was perfectly clear from a chat with Bryce 4 months ago, which I taped when he butt called me. Lauren is so anxious for attention. Dude, you make these fancy dinners and expect me to be impressed. It is pathetic. Evan's face wrinkled. Did you record me? You butt dialed me. I just did not hang up. I put away my phone. You have 5 minutes to collect your remaining items from the garage. Everything else remains with the house as per the settlement agreement. He glanced at me, tears pouring down his cheeks. I apologize. Okay. I apologize. Can we just talk about this? We discussed it for 9 years. You were not listening. Lauren, please. I love you. I admit I made a mistake, but we can work it out. I will go to treatment. I will do whatever you wish. Just please. No. That single word struck him as a physical blow. He literally staggered backward. Are you really so cold? He whispered. After everything, I'm exactly as cold as you taught me to be. I motioned toward the door. Your time has come. He took a box from the garage, some old fishing gear, and some tools, and departed without looking back. The police officer followed him out to ensure he had left the property. Naomi held me after his truck disappeared down the street. How are you feeling? Free. The final settlement arrived 7 weeks later. I received $162,000 from the house sale after paying off the outstanding debt. Evan received $48,000. I kept my entire retirement funds. He kept his, minus the amount that reflected my higher contributions to joint savings over time. He had to pay $14,000 for my legal fees. But the true victory arrived 4 months after our divorce was formalized. I was having coffee with Naomi at our favorite downtown cafe when Bryce and Madison walked in. They did not notice us in the corner booth. Madison mentioned that Evan is now living with his mother after Lauren had taken him to the cleaners. Dude got what he deserved. Bryce said, surprise me. I continued asking him to treat her better, but he believed he was so intelligent that she would never go. Men are always thinking that. Not all of us. I learned my lesson from my ex. Evan did not. Bryce ordered their drinks and said, plus, he's screwed at work. Martin promoted someone else to senior sales manager last week. Apparently, Evan's numbers have been down since the divorce. They collected their order and left. Naomi was smirking at me. Do you hear that? His numbers are falling. He's preoccupied by the implications. Funny how that works. My phone vibrated. I received a text from my mother. Can we eat lunch this week? I would like to discuss. We met on Wednesday at the restaurant she had chosen. When I arrived, she was already sitting and looked nervous. Thank you for coming, she murmured as I sat down. What would you like to chat about? She took a breath. I spoke with Susan last week about Evan, you, and the divorce, and she told me about how he mentioned you to his friends, about strip clubs and credit cards, and about text messages. My mother's eyes were wet. She found them while assisting him in moving out of the house. She is horrified. She should be. She reared him. I should be, too. I should have believed you when you said he was harsh. She reached across the table. I apologize, Lauren. I failed you. I apologize for telling you to make a deal with someone who was assaulting you. I did not instantly take her hand. Why are you apologizing right now? Because I was mistaken. Because my ideals about marriage blinded me to what was really going on with my daughter. Because I'm ashamed that I had to see evidence to believe you rather than simply taking your word for it. I eventually took her hand. Thank you for expressing that. We had lunch. She inquired about my current life. I'd moved into a smaller downtown condo, was taking pottery classes, and had been on 4 dates with a man named Caleb, a marine biologist who'd responded to my story about the anniversary dinner by saying, "That's terrible, you deserved better." You seem happier, my mother said as we left. I am. It turns out that not being mocked on a daily basis improves your mental health. Evan called me once 4 months after the divorce was finalized. I did not respond, but he left a voicemail. Lauren, clears throat, this is me. I know I shouldn't contact you, but I needed to tell you something. I understand it now. I know what I did and how I treated you. I've been to treatment, and my therapist helped me see. I was cruel. I was abusive. I took you for granted. I mocked you for caring about our marriage. You deserved much better. And I apologize. I know it's too late and you've moved on, but I needed to let you know that I finally understood what I lost. You were the best thing that had ever happened to me, and I ruined it. I hope you are happy. I really do. I hope you meet someone who appreciates all I overlooked. Goodbye. Lauren. I deleted the voicemail before finishing it. 18 months after signing the divorce papers, I was loading groceries into my car outside Whole Foods when I noticed Evan across the parking lot. He had aged poorly, becoming thinner and grayer, with the stance of someone carrying an invisible weight. He was alone, piling cheap beer and frozen food into an ancient Honda Civic that I didn't recognize. The Lexus was presumably gone. He saw me. We established eye contact with 3 rows of automobiles. I did not smile. I didn't wave. I just closed the trunk and drove away. Caleb came over for dinner that night. I cooked cook Owen, the same dish I'd made for the anniversary dinner, and he brought wine that actually went with it after researching French regional pairings. This is incredible, he exclaimed, and meant it. Where did you learn to cook like this practice? I used to cook a lot. Well, I'm glad you still do. This is restaurant quality. After dinner, he helped me clean up without asking, then lit the candles I'd bought. The same honey and bergamot ones from that night, without making a single joke about how much they were. I like candles, he replied simply. They're nice. That was all. There was no ridicule or eye-rolling, only sincere respect for something I had chosen. Naomi came over for brunch the next morning and found me in a very good mood. Things are going well for Caleb. Very good. He's kind. Isn't it strange how it has become a low bar? I poured her some more coffee. I received an email from Catherine yesterday. Apparently, Evan attempted to launch an appeal against the settlement. Are you serious? His new counsel allegedly convinced him that he had grounds based on a technicality regarding asset disclosure. Catherine closed it down in 36 hours. He dropped the appeal and was charged with an additional $6,500 in legal fees for filing frivolously. Naomi shakes her head. He simply cannot believe that he lost. It's his problem, not mine. 4 months later, I was elevated to vice president of marketing. My salary increased to $148,000. I purchased a new automobile that was inexpensive but reliable, and I began arranging a solo vacation to Ireland for the fall. My mother contacted when she learned about my promotion. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Thank you, Mom. You see, your father and I were discussing. We should not have questioned your decision to divorce Evan. You knew what you needed, and we should have assisted you right away. You are currently supporting me. That matters. Nonetheless, we squandered time. You should not have had to struggle for our understanding. She paused. Susan called me last week. Evan moved to Arizona. Some sales position that paid less than his current salary. But he needed a new start. Good on him. She inquired whether I thought you'd ever consider reconciliation. I laughed. Actually laughed. What have you told her? I told her that would require you to have any feelings for him. And I don't believe you do anymore. She was correct. I didn't hate Evan. Most days, I didn't think about him. He had become irrelevant, as he should have been all along. Caleb surprised me with a party for my 38th birthday. It wasn't a big party, just Naomi and a few other close friends in his backyard with string lights and nice food, and everyone seemed to enjoy my company. Make a wish, he said, holding a cake that he had cooked himself. I closed my eyes and imagined the lady I'd been 3 years before, standing in her kitchen at 12:30 a.m., still dressed in her anniversary gown, convinced she deserved more. I blew out the candles. I didn't wish for anything. I already had everything I needed, a job I enjoyed, people who valued me, a boyfriend who valued me, and the absolute assurance that I'd never settle for less than I deserved. Evan's ridicule had taught me a lesson. His degree had cost him all he had taken for granted. My parents gave me a $3 lottery ticket, sister a $15.5 cruise. I won $120 million. That night I had 94 missed calls. I blocked them, and kept every penny. I am Claire Whitmore, 34 years old. 10 weeks ago, on Thanksgiving night, in front of 28 relatives, my parents gave my sister a $15,500 cruise package and a crumpled $3 lottery ticket with a mocking smile. This is all that's appropriate for your situation, Claire, my mother said. Her voice rang throughout the dining room, loud enough for everyone to hear. They all laughed. They had no idea that little ticket would change everything. $120 million. Changes everything, but not in the way you might expect. Before I tell you this story, if you find it interesting, please like and subscribe, but only if you truly want to go along for the ride. Please let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I always enjoy knowing where my new friends are watching from around the world. Now, let me take you back 10 weeks to Thanksgiving night. Everything started to crumble that night. The Whitmore family's Thanksgiving was always a spectacle, not in the warm Hallmark movie sense, but more like a stage where everyone played their assigned roles. At 5:30 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway, carrying a homemade autumn salad and a bouquet of dahlias that I had grown myself. The flowers were a deep burgundy, ideal for the season. I had spent 4 months nurturing them. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Oh, Claire. Her gaze flickered to the bouquet and then away. I see you're still playing with plants. Behind her, I heard squealing. Madeline had arrived. Mom rushed past me with arms outstretched. That's my girl. Oh, the dress is stunning. Is it new? I stood in the doorway, holding my flowers, and watched my mother embrace my sister as if she hadn't seen her in years. It had been 12 days. Inside, the house was bustling with relatives, aunts, uncles, and cousins I barely recognized. Dad sat in his leather recliner, deep in conversation with my brother-in-law, Grant. He didn't get up when I walked in. Just a nod, a quick glance. Claire, good, you're here, Dad said, keeping his gaze fixed on Grant. We need assistance setting the table. Of course, I was here for work. The living room formed a semicircle around Grant as he discussed his most recent real estate consulting deal. Everyone leaned in, captivated. I knew better. Grant was slippery, but I had no proof, only instinct. Aunt Denise caught my eye from across the room. She gave me a small, sad smile. Later, while I was arranging napkins alone in the dining room, my mother introduced me to a distant cousin. This is Claire. My younger daughter. She does gardening. I'm thinking about something with plants. Landscape architecture. Mom. I design green spaces for corporate buildings. She waved her hand. Same thing, my dear. I continued folding napkins. Some battles are not worth fighting. Not yet. I was refilling my water pitcher when I heard them. The kitchen door was slightly ajar, and voices came through. Mom, Dad, and Madeline. They were speaking in the hushed conspiratorial tone that families use when they believe no one is listening. Mom was saying that the cruise leaves on December 19th. 12 days in the Caribbean. The entire family. You, Grant, the kids, your father and I, and Grandma Eleanor. If she feels well enough. My hand froze to the pitcher handle. What about Claire? Madeline asked, unconcerned. Simply acknowledging my existence. Silence. Then Dad cleared his throat. She's preoccupied with work. Besides, a trip like this is costly. We do not want to burden her. They didn't ask if I was busy. They had not asked if I could afford it. They had simply decided I was not worth including. I pushed open the door. I am not invited. 3 heads turned. Mom's smile tightened. Dad became extremely interested in his coffee cup. Sweetheart, Mom began. This trip is to celebrate Grant's promotion. It's more of a family thing. I finished. It's not about you, Claire, Madeline explained, her voice honeyed. We simply didn't think you'd be interested. You're always so independent. Independent? They used this word to refer to an outsider. I was about to respond when I noticed motion behind me. Grandma Eleanor stood in the hallway, her frail hand on her walker. Her eyes met mine, sharp, knowing, and filled with something I couldn't quite understand. She reached out and squeezed my hand without saying anything. But in the silence, I felt seen. Claire, help your grandmother sit down. Mom said, already steering Grandma away. She shouldn't be standing here for so long. Grandma Eleanor returned my gaze before disappearing around the corner. Her lips moved quietly. Call Daniel Hart this week. I did not understand, but I would. Soon, I'd understand everything. The dining room fell silent as Dad stood up and tapped his wine glass with a fork. Before we eat, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. He smiled, the routine smile of a man who had spent his entire life selling used cars. Family means everything. 28 people nodded in agreement. I counted 28 witnesses to what happened next. This year, Richard and Lorraine wanted to do something special for their daughters. He gestured grandly at Madeline. Madeline, sweetheart, come here. Madeline glided forward with grace and designer heels. Mom handed her a thick envelope while beaming. For you, Grant, and the children. A 12-day Caribbean cruise in first class. The room erupted. Applause, gasps of delight. Madeline burst into tears. The pretty kind. The kind that photographs well. Oh, my God, thank you. She threw her arms around both parents. This is too much. $15,500. I had seen the itinerary on Mom's computer last month. I was not supposed to, but I did. Then Mom turned to me. The applause faded. The room became quiet. Claire, honey, come here. I walked forward with wooden legs. She pushed a thin envelope into my hands. Inside, there was a single slip of paper. A lottery ticket. Mega Millions. $3. This is ideal for your situation, dear. Mom's smile did not reach her eyes. Who knows? Perhaps luck will find you. Someone snickered. Then someone else. Grant leaned back in his chair and smirked. Luck is a long shot when you don't have the intelligence to back it up. Laughter spread throughout the room. Madeline covered her mouth and giggled. Oh, Mom, that is so cute. Perhaps she'll win $10. I looked at the ticket in my hand. My face burned, but something deeper inside shifted, cracked, and broke free. I smiled. Thank you, Mom. I'm sure this is exactly what I deserve. No one noticed the edge in my voice, except me. The laughter was still echoing when a voice broke through. Richard, Lorraine, this is not correct. Everyone turned. Grandma Eleanor stood at the edge of the room, her small frame trembling from the strain of standing without her walker. Her voice was thin, but it carried. You can't treat Claire this way. Not in front of everybody. Not ever. The silence that followed was different than before. Heavy and uncomfortable. Nobody had expected the family matriarch to speak. Dad's jaws tightened. Mother, please. I'm not finished. But Mom was already moving, her heels clicking against the hardwood. She wrapped her arm around Grandma Eleanor with practiced efficiency. You are tired, Mom. Let me take you to lie down. Lorraine, I am not. The doctor said you needed to rest. Come on. I watched helplessly as my mother guided my grandmother to the guest room. Grandma Eleanor looked back at me over her shoulder. Our gazes met. She nodded once deliberately. Her gaze shifted slightly to her old leather handbag sitting on the armchair by the window, the one she always carries, the one that no one could ever touch. The door closed behind them. The room exhaled. Conversations resumed. The moment passed, as if it had never occurred. But I noticed Aunt Denise watching me from across the room. Her face was pale. She appeared to be about to say something before reconsidering. I excused myself to the restroom. I locked the door and stared at my reflection. The lottery ticket remained crumpled in my fist. $3. That is what they thought I was worth. But Grandma had mentioned something. Daniel Hart is a lawyer. Why would my grandmother, who had no lawsuits or legal issues, want me to contact a lawyer? I didn't know yet. But something told me I was going to find out. As usual, I started cleaning up alone around midnight. Most of the guests had left. Madeline and Grant had moved to the living room to plan their cruise wardrobe. My parents were seeing off the last of their relatives. I was gathering dishes from Dad's study when I noticed them. Papers scattered across his desk, as if he'd left in a hurry, bills with red overdue stamps, a collection agency letter, and a document that made my blood run cold. My father signed a loan agreement for $210,000, which was co-signed by Grant Caldwell. The interest rate was predatory, the kind you only see from people who work in the shadows. My hands shook as I turned to the next page. It was worse. Collateral documents for Grandma Eleanor's home. She had lived in the same house for 47 years. The house in which my mother grew up. The house was supposed to be Grandma's until she died. There was her signature. Shaky, uneven, and dated from 7 months ago. The same month, she fell and spent 12 days in the hospital, drugged up with painkillers. They had made her sign when she was not herself. I took out my phone. My heart was beating so hard that I could hear it in my ears. I photographed everything, page by page. I didn't know what to do with these photos. I did not have a plan, but now I understand something. The favoritism was not motivated by romantic feelings. It wasn't about Madeline being the perfect child. I was the threat. I was the one who would raise questions and point out inconsistencies. They needed me to be small, silent, and invisible. That's how I got a $3 lottery ticket. I slipped out the back door, photos saved, my mind racing. For the first time in my life, I was not going to remain silent. 9 days after Thanksgiving, I called Aunt Denise. She picked up on the third ring. Claire, I need to ask you something. Aunt Denise, what is it, honey? Is Dad in serious debt? Silence. Long and heavy. Do you know something? I pressed. How did you find out? I saw papers in the house. A loan agreement with Grant. Claire. Her voice lowered to a whisper. Don't discuss this on the phone. Why not? Because you still don't know everything about Grant. About your father. I tightened my grip on the phone. What things? Not here. Not like this. Meet me Saturday at the coffee shop on Elm Street. 1:30. Aunt Denise, please. And Claire? She paused. Don't believe anything Grant tells you. He isn't who he claims to be. The line went dead. I sat in my apartment, staring at the lottery ticket on the kitchen countertop. I had forgotten about it since Thanksgiving. It had been sitting there, crumpled and forgotten, just like me. Perhaps it was time to check the numbers. I launched the Mega Millions app, entered the numbers, and watched the little loading wheel spin. When the first number matched, my heart skipped. The second number matched. I stopped breathing. Third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. I refreshed the application. The same result. I visited the official website. The same numbers produced the same result. $120 million. I did not scream. I did not cry. I just sat perfectly still for what seemed like hours. Then I did the first thing that occurred to me. I looked up what to do first after winning the lottery. Then I remembered Grandma Eleanor's words. Daniel Hart. It was time to make the call. I did not tell anyone. Not one soul. For 4 days, I lived my life as if I were a ghost disguised in human form. I went to work, answered emails, and smiled at clients while keeping a 9-figure secret in my pocket. Every time my phone vibrated with a message from Mom or Madeline, I felt nothing. They couldn't have predicted how much money would be in my bank account once it cleared. But that was not what consumed me. It was the power. Not over them, but over myself. For 34 years, I had been the invisible one, the afterthought, the gardener. Now I had options that they couldn't take away. I did not call my parents. I did not call Madeline. I didn't use social media, buy a sports car, or do anything else that lottery winners are expected to do. Instead, I phoned Daniel Hart. Miss Whitmore. His voice was friendly yet professional. Your grandmother suggested you reach out. She told me to call you. I'm not sure why. Perhaps you should visit my office. There are some lottery-related issues that we need to discuss. A pause. You have won something. $120 million. Another pause. This time, the duration is longer. Then we should definitely talk. But, Miss Whitmore, the issues your grandmother wanted me to address with you existed before the lottery. They're about her estate and home. My stomach sank. How about her house? It's best if I show you in person. Can you come tomorrow? Yes. Miss Whitmore, please do not tell anyone in your family about this call. Not yet. I hung up and stared at my reflection on the dark phone screen. The lottery ticket had given me money, but Daniel Hart was about to give me something much more valuable. The truth. Daniel Hart's office smelled of old books and expensive leather. He was older than I expected, in his late 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the type of lawyer who still believed in doing things correctly. "Please sit." He motioned toward a chair across from his mahogany desk. I sat. "What did my grandmother ask you to tell me?" He slid the folder across the desk. 12 years ago, your grandmother set up a trust fund in your name. A trust fund. $600,000. The room tilted. What? I had no idea she wanted it this way. She was afraid. What exactly are you afraid of? Daniel's expression softened. I was afraid your mother would find a way to take it away from you. I opened the folder with trembling hands. Legal documents and bank statements are all real. There's more, he added gently. The house. Your grandmother's home. I saw the paperwork. My father cashed in. He nodded. The deed was signed 7 months ago. The day after your grandmother was admitted to the hospital. She was in severe pain and barely coherent. I felt sick. That is fraud. Potentially. The signature appears shaky. The timeline appears suspicious, but proving coercion is difficult without witnesses. She wasn't sure what she was signing. I do not believe she did. He leaned forward. Miss Whitmore, your father owes Grant Caldwell $210,000. The house was collateral. If he defaults, Grant inherits the property. Gavin, the pieces clicked into place. The favoritism, exclusion, and $3 lottery ticket. I wasn't meant to find out. What can I do? With your current resources, you have options. The deed can be challenged. We can repay the debt and remove the lien. We can protect your grandmother. I reviewed the trust fund documents. $600,000 from Grandma Eleanor. A crumpled lottery ticket yielded $120 million. Let us protect her. Okay, let me pause for a moment. I know what you are thinking. Claire, what are you planning to do? Are you going to exact revenge? However, this is not a revenge story. This is a story about the truth. If you want to know what happens next, leave a comment below. Have you ever been mistreated by your own family? If you agree with me, hit the like button. Now, let me explain what Aunt Denise revealed. Aunt Denise arrived to find the coffee shop nearly empty. She looked older and more tired than she did at Thanksgiving. She slid into the booth across from me, clutching her purse as a lifeline. "Thank you for meeting me," I said. I should have said something years ago. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "But Lorraine, you know how she is. Tell me about Grant." Denise's hands trembled when she reached for her coffee. "He is not a consultant. Not really. He lends money to desperate people at interest rates that would make any loan shark blush." I had a suspicion. "There is more." She pulled out her phone and began scrolling through her gallery. "At your parents' anniversary party 11 weeks ago, Grant left his phone unlocked on the counter. I was not snooping. I was just searching for mine." She turned the screen to face me. Grant and someone named Brooke exchanged text messages. The language was explicit, romantic, and damning. "I can't wait until this is over. I'll be leaving once the house deal is completed." "What about Madeline?" She fulfilled her purpose. "Divorce papers have already been drafted." I stared at the screen. "He is cheating on her. Brooke has been his assistant for the past 9 months. Denise's eyes welled up. I wanted to tell Madeline, but I was scared. Grant is not someone to cross. Does Madeline know? I do not think so. She's so focused on being the perfect wife and daughter. She does not see what is right in front of her. I sat back, processing. My sister was not my enemy. She was another victim. She just didn't realize it yet. "Thank you, Aunt Denise." I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "You did the correct thing." She wiped her eyes. "Claire, I'm sorry I waited so long. I'm very sorry. It isn't too late, not yet." The nursing home smelled of antiseptic and faded flowers. Grandma Eleanor's room was small but sunny, with windows looking out onto a garden in desperate need of professional help. My professional assistance. She looked smaller and frailer than I remembered. But when I walked in, her eyes lit up with the same sharpness I'd always seen. "Claire," she reached for my hand. "Did you come?" Of course I arrived. I moved a chair closer to her bed. "Grandma." I spoke with Daniel Hart. Her grip tightened. "Good. He is a good man. Why haven't you told me about the trust?" "Because your mother would have found a way to get it." Her voice was firm, despite its weakness. "You were the only person who never asked me for anything, never expected anything. That's how I knew you were the person who deserved it." Tears burned my eyes. She went on to say more about Grandma and the house. "They had me sign papers. I don't remember it well. Everything was foggy. I was in pain. I understand." Daniel explained. "We are going to fix it." She examined my face. "There is something else, something you aren't telling me." I paused. I then told her about the lottery. $120 million. Her own daughter gave me the ticket as a joke. Grandmother Eleanor laughed. Actually laughed, the sound of rustling paper. "Karma," she whispered. "I've always believed in karma. I'm going to buy back your house," I announced. "I'll make sure you can live there again. Whatever it takes." Her hand touched my cheek. "I don't need you to exact revenge on anyone, Claire. I only need you to be free so that I can protect what is important to me. I will. Promise me something. Anything. Do not become like them. Don't let money influence who you are. I kissed her forehead. I promise. Certain promises are easy to make. This one I plan to keep. 17 days after Thanksgiving, the Whitmores gathered again, this time for a farewell dinner before the big cruise. I was invited to help rather than as a guest. Claire, could you please arrange the centerpieces? You are good with plants. Claire, the caterer, needs direction. Can you handle that? Claire, make sure Grandma Eleanor's nurse is aware that we will be gone for 12 days. I did everything with a smile. I played my part. They expected a quiet and beautiful daughter. Nobody was aware that the lawyers were working overtime on my behalf. Nobody knew about the LLC I had formed to claim my winnings anonymously. Nobody realized that in 4 weeks, I'd be worth more than everyone in this room combined. The dinner was a parade of self-congratulation. Grant held court and described the cruise activities: snorkeling on Barbados, fine dining at the captain's table, and spa treatments for Madeline. Too bad you couldn't join us, Claire, Madeline said, not apologizing at all. But someone needs to water Mom's orchids. I don't mind, I replied. I hope you all have a great time. Dad clapped Grant's shoulder. This guy is the best thing that has ever happened to our family. Grant caught my eye. His smile did not reach his pupils. He was cold and calculating, as if he were assessing a business asset. Hello, Claire. He leaned in, his voice dripping with condescension. Will you buy any more lottery tickets? Perhaps you'll win $10 next time. The table laughed. I let them. You never know, I said politely. Luck has a tendency to surprise people. Mom raised a glass. To family, fortune, and the Whitmores. Everybody drank. I lifted my water glass and took a small sip. 10 days. In 10 days, they would be in the heart of the Caribbean, and I would be prepared. I stayed home the morning they left for the cruise. You aren't going to see us off? Mom had asked the night before, her voice carrying that familiar accusatory tone disguised as disappointment. I have a client meeting, and a big project, she sniffed. I will always work with you. Always work. As if I had a choice, or if they'd ever offered me anything else. I spent my departure day at Daniel's office, finalizing the paperwork for my LLC. The money would clear within a week after taxes, totaling approximately $74 million, more than enough for what I had planned. My phone buzzed as I was reviewing documents. Madeline. Claire, there's something wrong with Dad's credit card. It was declined at the port. Can you transfer $650? I will pay you back. I stared at the message. The irony was nearly too perfect. It was the first time in my life that Madeline had asked for money. I understood why the card was declined. The debt was catching up. Grant wasn't covering it as promised. The house of cards was beginning to wobble. I typed back. I do not have $650 to spare right now. Ask Grant. He is the financial consultant. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, and reappeared. Never mind. We figured it out. I didn't ask how. I didn't care. What mattered was that they were on that ship right now. All of them. Mom, Dad, Madeline, and Grant are trapped in the middle of the ocean for the next 12 days. I turned back to Daniel. How soon can we file our challenge to the house deed? Monday. When you were ready to make your move, I looked out his window at the city below. A cruise ship was sailing toward the Caribbean somewhere out there, while I was preparing for my own voyage. Day 4 of the cruise, I shared a single Instagram story, which featured me standing in front of Grandma Eleanor's house, the house that was allegedly no longer hers. The caption was simple. The home renovation project will begin soon. I knew Dad would see it. He was constantly checking social media. It was his only way of discovering what his daughters were up to. On the same day, the local news published a story. Mega Millions jackpot was claimed. The winner will remain anonymous. The ticket was purchased at a convenience store 4 miles from the Whitmore family's home. That detail did not come from me. The universe just has a sense of humor sometimes. Aunt Denise, bless her heart, mentioned it in our family group chat. Did you hear about the lottery winner? Someone from our area has won $120 million. They purchased the ticket at the little Quick Mart on Henderson Avenue, the one where Mom purchased my $3 ticket. The conversation exploded. Cousins speculated. Uncle Frank is cracking jokes about retirement. Mom followed up with a private message. Claire, I gave you a lottery ticket for Thanksgiving. You still have it, correct? I waited an hour to respond. Let her sweat. Yes, Mom. I've still got it. Why? Just curious. No reason. The emoji. She only used emojis when she was nervous. An hour later, my phone started buzzing. One call leads to another, and so on. Mom, Dad, Madeline, and Grant. I let them all go to voicemail. By the evening, I had missed 51 calls. By midnight, 94. The messages varied from casual, "Hey sweetie, just checking in," to frantic, "Claire, please call us back. This is urgent." I placed my phone face down on the nightstand. Tomorrow, I'd call them, but on my own terms and in front of an audience. 94 missed calls. I counted them twice to be sure. The voicemail messages were a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Mom, try 2. Claire, honey, this is Mom. I just wanted to hear your voice. Call me when you have a chance. Mom, try 9. Claire, this is important. Kindly call back. Mom, try 18. I don't know why you're ignoring us. This isn't like you. Dad, try 4. Claire, this is your father. We need to talk. Family business. Madeline, attempt 6. Claire, seriously, what's going on? Mom is freaking out. And then Grant, his voice smooth as ever. Claire, I think we should discuss some investment opportunities. Family helping family. You know, give me a call. I sat in my new apartment, a rental I'd secured the week before. Nothing fancy, just mine. And listened to every single message. Let their desperation wash over me like waves. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about the money. I texted Daniel Hart, is everything in place? His reply, ready when you are. I opened the family group chat and typed a single message. I'll video call tonight at 8:30 p.m. EST. Everyone needs to be present. There's something important I need to share. Within seconds, confirmations flooded in. Mom, of course, sweetie. We'll all be there. Dad, looking forward to it, kiddo. Madeline can't wait. Grant sent a thumbs up emoji. They thought they'd won. They thought I was going to announce my lottery winnings and then what? Hand them a check. Ask for their guidance. They had no idea what was coming. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing, organizing documents, rehearsing what I would say. This wasn't revenge. This was truth. And the truth, as they say, shall set you free. At exactly 8:30, I clicked join call. Their faces filled my laptop screen, crowded together in what looked like the ship's lounge, tropical sunset visible through the windows behind them. Claire, Mom's voice was sugary sweet. There's our girl. We miss you so much, honey. We really wish you were here with us. Dad added. The sincerity was almost convincing. Madeline waved from behind them. Hi, sis. You look good. Have you been doing something different with your hair? They'd never once commented on my hair. Grant sat slightly apart, arms crossed, watching me with that calculating gaze. Claire, good to see you. Thank you all for making time, I said calmly. I know you're busy enjoying your vacation. Family comes first, Mom declared. Always. Interesting choice of words. So, Dad leaned forward. We heard some interesting news. Something about a lottery ticket. I didn't flinch. Yes, I won. The silence was deafening. Then everyone spoke at once. Oh my God, that's incredible. How much? Claire, congratulations. I let them exhaust themselves. When the chatter died down, I spoke again. $120 million. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Dad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Madeline looked like she might faint. Grant recovered first. Claire, that's life-changing money. You're going to need help managing that. Investments, tax strategies, asset protection. I have a lawyer. I interrupted. Sure, but a family member who understands finance. Grant. My voice was steady. Before we talk about money, there are some things this family needs to know. His smile flickered. What kind of things? The truth. I shared my screen. Let me show you. The first document appeared, the loan agreement with Grant's signature, and everything changed. This, I said, is a loan agreement between my father and Grant. $210,000 at 29% interest. Dad's face went white. Where did you? And this, I continued, clicking to the next document, is the deed to Grandma Eleanor's house. Signed over as collateral, dated the same week she was hospitalized, barely conscious from pain medication. Mom's mouth opened. No sound came out. That signature is shaky because Grandma didn't know what she was signing. My lawyer has medical records confirming she was heavily medicated. This could be considered fraud. Claire, this is family business, Dad started. I'm not finished. I clicked again. This time, screenshots filled the screen. Text messages between Grant and Brooke. Explicit, unmistakable. These are messages between Grant and his assistant Brooke. They've been seeing each other for 9 months. Madeline's face crumpled. What? Once the house deal closes, I'm out, I read aloud. She fulfilled her purpose. Divorce papers have already been drafted. That's not. Grant stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. Those are fabricated. She's lying. Am I? I looked directly at my sister. Madeline, ask him. Look at his face and ask him. Madeline turned to Grant. Her voice was barely a whisper. Grant? He didn't answer. He grabbed his phone and walked out of frame. Mom began crying. Dad just sat there stunned. Here's what's going to happen. I said quietly. I'm using my money to pay off the loan and clear the lien on Grandma Eleanor's house. The deed will be transferred back to her, legally protected. None of you will have any claim to it. Claire, Dad pleaded. We're family. Family doesn't steal from 88-year-old women. I kept my voice level, and I'm not done. Okay, I know a lot of you are screaming yes at your screens right now, but hold on, the story isn't over yet. If you've ever dreamed of saying the things I just said to your own family, smash that like button. And if you want to know what happened to Grant next, oh, karma wasn't finished with him. Keep watching, because what happened after that call, even I didn't see it coming. I ended the call before anyone could respond. The last thing I saw was chaos. Madeline crying, Mom shouting something I couldn't hear, Dad sitting motionless with his head in his hands. Grant was nowhere to be seen. My apartment was silent, just me and the fading sunset through the window. I'd imagined this moment for weeks. I thought I'd feel triumph, victory, vindication. Instead, I felt hollow, tired, like I'd just run a marathon I hadn't trained for. My phone exploded within seconds. Calls, texts, voicemails. I turned it to silent and set it face down. Then a knock at my door. I tensed. No one knew I'd moved. Through the peephole, I saw Aunt Denise. She looked as exhausted as I felt. How did you find me? Daniel Hart gave me the address. I hope you don't mind. I let her in. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. You did good, honey. You did what none of us had the courage to do. Did I? My voice cracked. I just destroyed my entire family on a video call. No. She pulled back, holding my shoulders. They destroyed themselves years ago. You just turned on the lights. My phone buzzed. A text from Madeline. I didn't know about Grant. I swear I didn't know. I'm so sorry about everything. I need time to think, but I'm sorry. I read it twice, 4 times. What do you think? Denise asked. I don't know. I set the phone down. I don't know if she's sincere. I don't know if anything will change. You don't have to decide tonight. She was right. For the first time in 34 years, I had time. I had options. I had freedom. 4 weeks later, Daniel Hart called me with good news. It's done, he said. The deed challenge went through faster than expected. With the medical records and the witness testimony from your Aunt Denise, the bank agreed to void the original transfer. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. So, the house is still technically owned by the bank. Your father defaulted on the loan payments when Grant stopped co-signing. But here's where your money comes in. I'd already made my decision. Pay it off whatever it costs. It'll be approximately $215,000 principal, plus interest, plus legal fees to transfer the deed cleanly to your grandmother's name. Do it. The money was nothing. A rounding error compared to what I had now. But what it represented, that was everything. There's one more thing, Daniel said carefully. I've drafted a protection clause. Once the house is in your grandmother's name, no member of the Whitmore family, that includes your parents, can claim any rights to the property. Not during her lifetime and not after. And after she passes, it goes to you per her original wishes before any of this happened. I thought about that crumpled lottery ticket, the mocking smile on my mother's face. $3 to get rid of the inconvenient daughter. One more clause, I said. I wanted it in writing that my grandmother can live there for the rest of her life with full-time care if needed, completely paid for, already included. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Daniel, thank you. Thank your grandmother, he said. She chose you for a reason. I hung up and immediately called the nursing home. I'm coming to pick up Eleanor Whitmore. It's time to take her home. Grant tried to control the narrative. Of course, he did. The screenshots were photoshopped. He told anyone who would listen. Claire is mentally unstable. She's jealous of Madeline's success. She's trying to tear this family apart. It might have worked once, before social media, before Brooke. Brooke was apparently not pleased about being abandoned mid-scandal. 4 days after the video call, she went nuclear. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, every platform. Photos of them together, restaurant receipts, hotel bookings, intimate messages that made the ones I'd shared look tame, and her own video statement. Mascara streaked and furious. Grant Caldwell is a liar and a fraud, she declared to her 420 followers, a number that multiplied by thousands within hours. He told me he loved me, he told me he was leaving his wife, and now he's trying to pretend I don't exist. Madeline filed for divorce before the cruise ship docked. But Brooke wasn't the only one with grievances. Within 10 days, 2 of Grant's business associates came forward to the state attorney general's office with complaints about predatory lending practices. The interest rates he'd been charging weren't just unethical, they were illegal in 3 states. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. The dominoes fell on their own. Dad declared bankruptcy 6 weeks later. The car repair shop he'd owned for 27 years gone. Liquidated to pay debts that had been accumulating long before I found those papers. I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not pity, just a strange, peaceful emptiness. Karma, Grandma Eleanor said when I told her, sitting in her own living room for the first time in 14 months. I told you I believed in karma. She squeezed my hand, I squeezed back. Some things don't need words. My mother called me 4 weeks after the video call. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press the green button. Claire. Her voice was like she'd been crying for days. Claire, you've ruined us. No. Hello. No. How are you? Straight to the accusation. I didn't ruin anything. Mom, I told the truth. The truth? She laughed bitterly. Everyone knows now. Everyone. The neighbors, the church, my book club. I've been going to that book club for 16 years, and now they won't even return my calls. I'm sorry that's happening. Are you? Are you really? Her voice cracked. You had everything. $120 million. You could have helped us. You could have saved your father's business. You could have. I could have covered up fraud. I kept my voice steady. I could have pretended Grant wasn't a cheating predator. I could have let you keep Grandma Eleanor's house. We're your family. So is Grandma. Silence. Mom, I said quietly, I'm not blocking your number. If you ever want to have a real conversation, one where you acknowledge what you did, not just what you lost, I'll be here. But I won't listen to you blame me for consequences you created. You're so cold. When did you become so cold? I learned from the best. She hung up. It was the last time we spoke for 7 months. Dad never called at all. I heard through Aunt Denise that they'd moved into a small apartment across town. He was working as a mechanic for someone else's shop now. Mom had taken a job at a grocery store. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel vindicated. I just kept living my life, because that was always the point, not to punish them, but to finally live free. The letter arrived 10 weeks after the cruise. Not an email, not a text, a handwritten letter, 3 pages long on pale blue stationery. My sister's looping cursive, which I hadn't seen since she wrote me notes in middle school. Dear Claire, I don't know how to start this, so I'll just start. I'm sorry. Not because I want money from you. Not because I'm trying to get back on your good side. I'm sorry because I should have said it years ago, and I didn't. I knew Grant had problems. I didn't know about Brooke, but I knew something was wrong. I ignored it because admitting it meant admitting my whole life was a lie. I knew Mom and Dad treated you unfairly. I told myself it wasn't my business. I told myself you were fine. You were always so independent, so capable. You didn't need me to defend you. That was a coward's excuse. You were my little sister. I should have defended you anyway. The divorce is finalized. I'm starting over. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know it has to be different. You don't have to forgive me. You don't owe me anything. I just wanted you to know. I see you now. I see what I missed for 34 years. I'm very sorry. Love, Madeline. I read the letter 4 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't write back. Not yet, but for the first time, I felt something shift. A door that had been locked for years creaking open just slightly. We met for coffee 6 weeks later. It was awkward, stilted. Neither of us knew how to be sisters anymore, but we were trying, and that was a start. Grandma Eleanor came home in May. I was there when the nursing home transport van pulled into her driveway, the same driveway where I'd skinned my knee, learning to ride a bike. The same driveway where she'd stood, waving goodbye after every visit, shrinking in the rear view mirror until she disappeared. She was smaller now, frailer, but when the attendant wheeled her up the ramp I'd installed, her eyes found the garden, overgrown, neglected, but still there, and she smiled. It needs work, she said. I'm going to fix it, I promised. That's my specialty, remember? I'd spent the previous month preparing the house, new accessibility features, a hospital bed in the master bedroom, round-the-clock nursing care on standby, the best of everything money could buy, because for once I had money to spare. We sat in the sunroom that afternoon, watching goldfinches at the feeder I'd installed. You did all this? She asked, gesturing at the renovations. It's your house. It should be comfortable. She was quiet for a long moment. Then your mother called me last week. I tensed. What did she say? She wanted me to talk to you. To convince you to come back to the family. What did you tell her? Grandma Eleanor turned to look at me directly. Her eyes, despite her age, were sharp as ever. I told her that you never left. That family isn't about showing up for Sunday dinners. It's about showing up when it matters. She reached for my hand. You showed up, Claire. When everyone else saw what they could take from me, you saw what you could give. I blinked back tears. I just did what was right. That's the hardest thing to do. And you did it anyway. We sat together until the sun went down. No more words needed. 14 months later, I barely recognized my own life. I still worked, not because I needed the money, but because I loved what I did. My landscape architecture firm had expanded, 3 new employees, an office with actual windows, and a waiting list of clients. I'd designed 4 public gardens in the past year alone. The lottery money sat mostly untouched in diversified investments. I'd bought a modest house near Grandma Eleanor. Nothing flashy, just enough space for me and the dog I'd finally adopted. A rescue mutt named Daisy who loved to dig in my test gardens. The foundation was my real legacy. The Eleanor Whitmore Foundation awarded scholarships to young women pursuing careers in the arts, painting, music, design, anything creative. Women from families who didn't understand them. Women who'd been told their dreams weren't practical. Their talents weren't valuable. Their voices didn't matter. Each acceptance letter I read felt like a small act of defiance. Take that, universe. Take that. Every parent who ever said, but how will you make money? I visited Grandma Eleanor 6 days a week. Some days she was sharp, full of stories about the past. Other days she was tired, and we just sat together in comfortable silence, watching her garden grow. "Your tulips are coming up," I told her one afternoon. "You planted those?" She reminded me, "They're still yours." She smiled. "You can after. Your tulips are coming up. Everything good I have is because I shared it with people who appreciated it. Remember that." Yes, I would. I was living proof of it. The money didn't make me happy. It gave me options. Freedom from other people's expectations. Room to breathe. Happiness came from somewhere else entirely. From work that mattered. From relationships built on truth. From the simple act of being exactly who I was. People ask me about my family sometimes, where they are, if we've reconciled. The honest answer is complicated. My parents live in a small apartment across town. Dad works as a mechanic. Mom works at a grocery store. They're stable, but struggling, not destitute, but nothing like the life they once imagined for themselves. We communicate occasionally. Dad sends a text on my birthday. "Hope you're well. Love, Dad." I respond, "Thank you. Hope you're well, too." That's the extent of it. Mom never apologized. She has called a few times, usually to complain about her situation or to indicate that she could use some assistance. I listen politely and then change the subject. Sometimes she hangs up in frustration. Sometimes we can have a few minutes of civil conversation before resentment creeps back in. I am not ready to let them back in. Maybe I'll never be. That is okay. Forgiveness is not something you owe those who have hurt you. It is something you give yourself when and if you are prepared. Madeline is unique. We have had coffee together 8 times now. Lunch 3 times. We text occasionally, not every day, but often enough. She is rebuilding her life. New apartment, new job, and a new therapist to help her figure out how she ended up with someone like Grant. We are not close. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but we are trying. I didn't realize how dysfunctional our family was until I left. She told me last month. I assumed that was normal. I thought I was lucky. We both believed whatever we needed to believe to survive. She nodded. I did not cry for once. Progress. I don't know where Grant is, and I don't care. Some people do not deserve to be in your thoughts. I have made my peace. I am moving forward. That is enough. People repeatedly ask me the same question. Has $120 million changed your life? The answer surprises them. No, not really. What changed my life was a single, defining moment when I realized I'd spent 34 years waiting for others to recognize my worth. And they never will. Not because I was unimportant, but because they were not looking. The lottery ticket was a gift, not because it was valuable, but because of what it revealed. The people who should have loved me were only interested when they thought I had something they wanted. That revelation was more valuable than any jackpot. If you're watching this and your family doesn't see you, I'd like to tell you something. You do not need $120 million to set yourself free. You do not need luck. You do not need permission. You only need to make one decision to stop allowing others to define your worth. Set your boundaries. Walk away from tables where you are only asked to serve. Build your own table if necessary. The money gave me choices, but the power was always mine. I didn't realize it until someone handed me a $3 lottery ticket with a smirk and said they'd put me in my place. They put me in my place. All right, just not the one they were expecting. I am Claire Whitmore, a 35-year-old landscape architect, dog mom, granddaughter, philanthropist, and, most importantly, a woman who has finally chosen herself. That is the real jackpot. At my brother's birthday, Dad said, "You exist to pay his dreams." I replied, "Fine." Then canceled $197,000 in support by morning, 29 missed calls. I blocked them. I pulled at my parents' driveway in Scottsdale, my dear wife Lila beside me, her hand resting on my knee. More than 36 cars lined the street. Postino's catering van sat in the driveway, its back doors open and crew unloading trays. I could see new patio furniture through the living room window, including a teak wood set with navy cushions and a matching umbrella. A photographer was unpacking equipment near the side gate. I completed the math automatically. Catering for 36 persons costs $34 per plate, with a minimum of $1,350. Patio furniture costs $1,650. Photographer's starting charge is $575. I could envision an open bar put up in the backyard for an additional $680. The total is at least $4,240. Last Tuesday, I sent my folks $3,750 for what Dad described as an urgent property tax matter. The county threatened a lien. He had stated that it had to be paid immediately. I took out my phone and texted Dad. The party appears to be quite pricey. Remember how important the property tax was? Sent. No response. You ready? Lila asked. No, but let us leave. We walked up the driveway. The front door opened before we got there. Logan stood there, champagne flute half empty, wearing a linen shirt that most likely cost $135. He was 27 today and still lived in Mom and Dad's basement. Grant, I didn't expect you to show. Did the corporate slave get some time off? Happy birthday, Logan. Have you brought the Sony 85mm lens, the one I texted you about? I said no. He turned to face his companion, who stood behind him. See, I told you. Mr. Six Figures cannot spare $1,950 for family. Before I could react, Mom appeared, wiping her hands on an apron. Finally, there is Grant and Lila. No hug, no grin. The turkey is nearly ready, but the gravy requires attention. You're really skilled at mending stuff like that. Not. Thank you for attending. Not. I'm delighted you're here. But you are useful. Where should we place the gift? I asked, holding out the card I had brought. Oh, anywhere. Kitchen counter, perhaps. I strongly want you to check the oven thermometer. I believe it is reading incorrectly. Lila squeezed my hand. She felt it too. The role, the function, I was expected to arrive as unpaid staff rather than a guest. I'll check it in a minute, I said. Let me greet everyone first. I strolled by her and toward the backyard instead. The party was in full flow. String lights strung above. The new patio furniture created a seating area around a fire pit that I didn't remember them having. A bartender dressed in a black vest was making drinks at a portable bar setup. The photographer was taking candid photos of Logan and his companions. I stood near the brink, taking inventory of everything. Buffet tables, Italian catering, figs covered in prosciutto, Capri skewers, pasta stations. $38 per plate was a modest estimate, and most likely $38. The total for 36 guests was $1,368. Patio furniture, I recognized the brand from a client assignment. That set retailed for at least $1,950. Liquor from the bar's top shelf, Grey Goose, Hrix, Patron. Plus, the hired bartender is easily worth $760. Photographer, I noticed a contract resting on the bar table next to a stack of napkins. I moved closer. Invoice. Professional photographic services. The amount is $725. Robert Reed made the payment. The payment method is a credit card with the number 4,782. I recognized that card. I was an authorized user on it. I'd been paying my monthly expenses for 6 years. My jaw constricted. Dad stood on the patio with Aunt Margaret and Uncle Thomas, his arm around Logan's shoulders. He was energetic, pointing and smiling. Logan grinned as he soaked it in. Aunt Margaret was telling Robert that Logan's photography portfolio is amazing. I spotted it on Instagram. What a keen sense of composition. Dad beams. We've been blessed. Not every parent has a son who is an artist. And she asked Grant, how's his computer thing? Dad glanced my way and found me standing there. Oh, he is fine. Makes good money, has a solid job, and works on technology for Adobe. There was no emotion in his voice, no pride, only recognition that I existed and served a purpose. I thought about my 29th birthday 2 years ago. Olive Garden. We would split the check 3 ways. I had paid $52 for my half. Logan celebrated his 24th birthday that same year with a hired event venue at a winery, a DJ, 72 people, an open bar. I found out 7 months later that I had funded it. Dad called in February and said they needed $4,600 for emergency roof repairs. The roofing was good. The celebration had occurred in March. Uncle Daniel broke away from the group and approached me. Grant, it's been a while. How is Adobe treating you? Good. Senior engineer presently. His eyebrows rose. Senior? That is wonderful. Congratulations. He paused. Your father stated that? Not that I've heard. Huh? Uncle Daniel turned back to face Dad, who was still talking about Logan. He spent 18 minutes informing me about Logan's Instagram followers. It appears that there are 12,000 followers. We both looked at Logan. He was snapping selfies with his birthday cake. Phone raised high, face angled at the familiar posture of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Logan noticed me watching and approached, drink in hand. So let's get real, Grant. I need the lens for a client shot on Monday. Do you have a client? Potential client? The music venue downtown wants promotional pictures, but I need the 85 Mitzer to seem professional. Are they paying you? This is spec work for my portfolio, but if they like it, they will hire me for the entire campaign. So, no, they aren't paying you. His expression hardened. God, you are such a corporate robot. Grant, it's not all about money. Some of us are interested in art and the creation of important works. Some of us pay rent, I explained. Lila appeared near my elbow. Dinner is served, she remarked hastily, easing the situation. Everyone went to the huge table put out in the backyard. Grant and Lila were sat at the far end, away from the head table. Logan sat in the center, with Mom and Dad encircling him like royalty. Dad stood there, tapping his champagne glass with a knife. The sound interrupted the talk. Everyone quieted. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my son Logan's 27th birthday. Applause. Logan's pals give him high praise. Susan and I were blessed with a child 27 years ago who has a unique perspective on the world. Logan isn't after money or status. He seeks beauty, art, and significance, things that go beyond a wage. More applause. I kept my expression neutral. Not everyone understands the artist's path, Dad continued. It is challenging. It will take sacrifice, not only from Logan, but from everyone who loves him and believes in his vision. My jaw was locked. Susan and I are happy to support his endeavor, regardless of the expense, since certain things are more important than money. I did the calculations in my head automatically. The gallery failed, and they took out a second mortgage of $110,000 in 2021. Monthly mortgage support of $550 over 30 months earned $16,500. Logan's Jeep car payments are $395 per month for 30 months, or $11,850 in total. Emergency requests, conservatively estimated at $28,500 over 6 years. The total investment in Logan is $197,650. The whole investment in me was $1,800 for textbooks freshman year, which I paid back in 2019. Uncle Thomas, 3 drinks in, yelled from the middle table, "What about Grant? He's here, too. Say something about your other son." The awkward quiet echoed around the guests. Dad's smile tightened. "Grant, come up here. Share a few words about your brother." Trap. I recognized it right away, but 36 people were watching and waiting. The phones were already out. I stood and moved to the front of the head table. "Happy birthday, Logan. I hope 27 is wonderful to you." I turned to walk back. Dad's hand gripped my shoulder. Stopped me. Hang on, while you're up here." He turned to face the audience, resting his hand on my shoulder like if I were a prop. "Grant is our practical son. He is in charge of ensuring that tasks are completed. The dependable one, the one who keeps the lights on." Scattered and uneasy laughs. My face got frigid. "Robert, may we just talk inside for a minute?" I replied quietly. Dad waved his hand dismissively. "Later, son. We are celebrating the property tax payment I made on Tuesday." The laughs faded. Guests leaned forwards. Dad's face clouded. "Not now. Or the mortgage payment, which I've been covering since 2021. Logan stood up. "What the heck, dude? It is my birthday." Mom raced from her seat. "Grant, please, this is not proper." "When is proper, Mom? When you text me at midnight with another fabricated emergency?" Phones were definitely out now. Recording. I could see the small red spots. Dad's voice became loud. "We are presently inside." He grabbed my arm and pulled me towards the house. Mom and Logan followed. The kitchen door banged behind us. Dad spun around and pointed at my chest. "How could you shame me in front of my whole family? Embarrassing you? You just told 36 people that my role in this family is to pay Logan's lifestyle since it is your purpose. Do you want the truth? Fine. Here is the truth." He moved closer. I could smell scotch on his breath. "Grant, you and Logan are not built alike. You're logical, practical, and emotionless. You don't need help. You simply execute. You handle things. That is who you are. Logan too. Logan is an artist. He is sensitive. He requires mentoring, financial support, and time to explore his talents without the stress of bills, rent, and other routine tasks that stifle creativity. On my money. Regarding family money. We are a family, Grant. Your success fosters his creativity. This is how families work. Say it again." Dad did not hesitate. "Your job is to work. His job is to create. That is how this family functions. It is balanced." I got out my phone, opened the Notes app, and began typing. "What are you doing now?" Mom asked. "I'm documenting this chat for my records." "You're making a scene over nothing," Dad replied. "We requested you for assistance. That's what the family does. We aid each other." I looked up from my phone. "How much aid have you given me?" "We raised you." "I paid for my own college. $72,000 in school loans. Paid them off by 2019. I purchased my own automobile. I pay my own rent. You gave Logan a shiny new Hyundai for his high school graduation. You paid the art school deposit. You took out a $110,000 mortgage to open a gallery for him, which failed within 10 months. He needed those items." Mom started, but I didn't. Silence, only the hum of the refrigerator. Dad's face turned purple. "Listen to me, Grant. You exist to pay for his dreams. That is your duty in the family. You make the money, Logan creates the art. We help with both. That is the system." The words remained in the air. "You exist to pay for his dreams." And if I didn't like the system, I inquired. Dad pointed at the door. "Then there is the door. Leave." Mom gave a gasp. "Robert, no." Dad's voice remained still. "If he wants to play the martyr, if he wants to hold his success over us as if we were charity cases, he can leave." Logan crossed his arms. "Honestly, yes. If you're going to throw money in our faces every time we beg for aid, simply leave." I examined all 3 of them. Mom starts crying. Dad's arm is pointing towards the exit. Logan smirked. This was the moment, the hinge point. The conclusion I had been working toward for 6 years without recognizing it. I pulled out my phone again, accessed my banking app, and began tapping. What are you doing now? Mom's voice became harsh. I accept your terms. Tap tap tap. Monthly transfer for mortgage assistance is scheduled at $1,650. Cancelled. Dad's eyes widened. You're not telling the truth. I rotated the screen to show him. Confirmation message. Transfer cancelled. Cancellation occurred 12 seconds ago. Tap, tap, tap. Logan's Jeep Wrangler requires payment. Due on December 1st, 11 days from today, $395. You are on your own. What's going on, Grant? Logan started. Tap, tap, tap. A joint checking account. I am an authorized user of the one you use for grocery. Remove myself right now. Done. Mom screamed. Actual screech. Tap, tap, tap. Family phone plan. It is under my name. Logan's line will be cancelled as of Monday a.m. I stepped to the door, paused, and turned back. You mentioned that if I didn't like it, I could leave. I caught Dad's gaze. I'm happy to leave. Good luck paying the $197,650 that I've been covering for the past 6 years. I opened the door. Lila was waiting near the car. Keys are already out. I could hear Dad's voice behind me. You will come to regret this. I slammed the door. The sound echoed around the backyard. Guests were standing now, looking out the windows and recording through the glass. Lila and I got into the car. She started the engine. As we drove away, I could see them through the kitchen windows. Dad is shouting. Mom is crying. Logan paces. I felt nothing. No, it was not true. I felt lighter. The next morning, I awoke to my phone incessantly vibrating on the nightstand. The screen flashed up repeatedly, buzzing like an enraged wasp. 29 missed calls. I picked up the phone. Lila was already awake next to me, reviewing her own list of missed calls. Dad, 13. Mom, 9. Logan has 619 text messages, 13 voicemails. Lila said, your Aunt Margaret texted me, without looking up. The quote is, tell Grant to call his mother. Family emergency. There is no emergency. I started the text thread chronologically. Watch the terror spread in real time. Dad, it is 11:23 p.m. Answer your phone right now. Mom at 11:47 p.m. Grant, please, you scare me. Logan at 12:02 a.m. You are a friggin' lunatic. You've ruined everything. Dad, it is 1:15 a.m. I checked the bank. You actually canceled it. Fix this right away. Mom, it is 2:34 a.m. I can't sleep. How could you do it? Dad, it is 3:41 a.m. Mortgage due December 1st is $2,950. We do not have it. Call me. Logan at 6:52 a.m. My phone is not working. What the fuck? Did you do it? I put the phone down. Lila was watching me. Are you certain about this? She asked. For the past 6 years, I've tracked every payment in Excel. I knew this day was coming. I opened my laptop and found the file I'd been keeping since 2019. Family financial tracking. XLSX. 6 years of data. Every transfer, every fabricated emergency, every one-time request became permanent. The gallery bailout cost $110,000. Monthly mortgage support is $57,750. 30 months for $550. Logan's Jeep car payments are $11,850 over 30 months at $395 per month. The emergency request is for $28,500. Total, $197,650. I exported the full spreadsheet to PDF, named it Red Family Receipts 2019 to 2024 PDF, and saved it on my desktop. My telephone rang. Dad is calling. I declined. It immediately rang again. Mom's phoning. Declined. Text message notice. Logan, please let me explain. Call me. I banned the phone number, then Logan's Instagram, Facebook, and email. Lila got up, made coffee, and brought me a mug. Let them panic, I said. She nodded. By 11:15 a.m., the family group chat had exploded. The conversation was labeled Read Family Updates. There were 48 users, including aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins, and everyone else. I browsed through the text that had accumulated while I was ignoring my phone. Mom posted at 9:23 a.m. Please remember our family in your thoughts and prayers at this difficult time. We are facing a significant financial dilemma as a result of unforeseen circumstances. Oh no, Aunt Margaret. What happened? Mom, I'd rather not discuss this openly, but we may lose our home. 10 comments in quick succession, all variants on praying for you, how we can help, and how sorry we are, Susan. She was eliciting sympathy and developing the narrative. Mom posted at 10:47 a.m. Grant has decided to cut us off financially without warning. We are about to face foreclosure. Wait, Cousin Emily, was Grant paying your mortgage? There was no response from Mom. Logan posted at 11:03 a.m. My brother threw a temper tantrum at my birthday celebration, embarrassing our entire family, and canceled all of our payments out of vengeance. That is who he really is. Cousin Andrew, what exactly happened? Logan, he couldn't take not being the center of attention for one night. They ruined my birthday, and ruined our family. Sociopathic behavior. I read everything. Did not respond. Just captured screenshots one after the other and put them in a folder called Family Lies. You should protect yourself, Lila whispered, reading over my shoulder. Not yet. Allow them to develop the narrative. The larger the deception, the better the truth seems when I discard it. At 11:34 a.m., Uncle Daniel joined the discussion. Uncle Daniel, Robert, how much did Grant pay monthly? Dad posted at 11:36 a.m. That is a private family business, Daniel. Uncle Daniel, you just made it public by posting in a group chat of 48 individuals. How much? No reaction from Dad. Uncle Daniel, I'll take your silence as more than I'm comfortable acknowledging. Grant, please phone me when you are ready. I messaged Uncle Daniel privately. Thanks, I will call on Monday. He responded promptly. Good, do not let them guilt you. I've seen the pattern for years. Sunday morning, at 9:47 a.m., my phone rang. Mom's phoning. I responded and placed it on speaker. Lila sat across from me at the kitchen table. Mom's voice was thick with tears. Grant, please, we need to speak face to face. I am listening. Can you come over? No. Grant, we are your parents. Rustling and muffled voices, the phone exchanged hands. Dad's speech was controlled and calm, reflecting the bargaining tone he used with difficult customers at his store. Son, let us talk like grown-ups. Go ahead. You made your point on Friday. We hear you. You feel undervalued. I get it. Do you? Yes, and we are willing to make changes. More gratitude and acknowledgement. We could do better. In exchange, we would ask you to evaluate your mortgage help. If you choose, we can restructure it as a loan. Official paperwork includes signed documents that are legally binding. Interest rate, pause. Well, Grant, we are family. Maybe 0% is appropriate. So, it's not a loan. A present that you are rebranding to make me feel better about. His voice tightened. Why are you so difficult? I felt something cold and clear inside me. Dad, do you recall what you said to me on Friday night? I mentioned a number of stuff. You informed me that I exist to fulfill his dreams. Do you recall saying it? Silence. 6 seconds. 12. I was angry. I did not mean it. You simply didn't expect me to believe you. Mom grabbed the phone back, sobbing uncontrollably. Grant, please, we will lose the house, where you grew up, and all of your memories. You'll lose the home you took out a second mortgage on to fund Logan's bankrupt gallery. Not my house, but yours. How can you be so cruel? I gave you $19,860 over 6 years, Mom. I was never cruel. I used to work at a bank, and banks terminate accounts when customers fail to repay them. I hung up. Lila leaned across the table to take my hand. You okay? I am free. Lila was scrolling through her phone on Sunday afternoon at 3:42 p.m. She paused and glanced up at me. You should see this. She flipped the screen around. GoFundMe campaign, launched 2 hours ago. Title, Help my family avoid homelessness following financial abuse. Logan and our parents appear melancholy and defeated in this photo, which was created with professional lighting. I read the description. My family is facing foreclosure after my brother, who works in technology and earns 6 figures, abruptly stopped providing financial support. We supported his schooling, profession, and aspirations. Now he has abandoned us in our hour of need. My elderly parents might lose their home. Any help is greatly appreciated. The goal is $55,000, with $382 received thus far from 14 donors. Comments section, I'm praying for your family. Family should always come first. God will provide, but why did you rely on your brother? 3 thumbs up. Get a job, perhaps. 7 votes. This sounds like there is more to the story. 11 votes. I read it twice. Financial abuse. They abandoned us. Supported my schooling. Are you planning to respond? Lila asked. Yes, publicly. Yes. I opened my laptop, navigated to the GoFundMe website, logged in, hit the comment button, and typed Grant Reed here. The 6-figure tech job brother mentioned earlier. These are the facts. 1. I paid for my own college tuition and took out $72,000 in student loans, which I will repay in full by 2019. 2. I've given my parents $19,860 in the last 6 years. I have receipts for all transactions. 3. Of the $55,000 you're asking strangers to donate, I already handed my parents $110,000 for a gallery that shuttered in 10 months due to mismanagement. 4. During my brother's 27th birthday celebration, my father told me, quote, you exist to pay his dreams. 5. I'm not abandoning anybody. I'm merely discontinuing voluntary donations. Logan, Get a job, you are 27 years old. Posted. I refreshed the site. My comment was at the top. Within 10 minutes, my comment had 53 upvotes. There are 94 new comments on the campaign, the majority of which beg Logan for an explanation. Logan has received multiple requests for receipts to back up his story. At 4:03 p.m., the whole GoFundMe campaign was wiped, as if it never existed, but I have some screenshots. Monday morning at 8:15 a.m. I was preparing breakfast, when my phone rang. Uncle Daniel. I responded. I talked to your father for 2 hours yesterday, Uncle Daniel stated without hesitation, and he is drowning. Daniel's second mortgage debt is still $92,000. The monthly payment for that loan alone is $1,520. Combined with the initial mortgage, they pay $2,950 per month on a fixed income of $3,650. I know I've been making up the difference. For how long? 3 years of reliable monthly payments. Prior to that, there were rare emergency demands. Total cost over 6 years, $19,860. Uncle Daniel whistled long and low. Jesus Christ, and they are angry with you. Apparently, your father directly requested me to lend them money yesterday. I asked for $5,000 to get through the following 2 months. What have you said? I said no. I advised them to sell the house and downsize to something they could realistically afford. Pause. You did the correct thing, youngster. The toughest thing you'll ever do, but it's the right thing. My throat clenched. It doesn't feel right since you adore them. But love does not imply becoming their ATM forever. Love does not imply abandoning your future for their terrible choices. I did not respond. Couldn't. Uncle Daniel said, call me if you need anything. I mean it, thanks. He hung up. Lila came into the kitchen and wrapped her arms around me from behind. You okay? I checked my phone. No new missed calls. There are no new texts. The siege had ended. Yes, I said. I guess I'm back at work. I configured my phone to do not disturb, but the notification badges continued mounting. 51 unread messages and 29 missed calls. Email from Dad at 7:42 a.m. The subject line indicates an urgent bank situation. Grant, the bank phoned. Mortgage payment of $2,950 is due tomorrow at 11:22. Without it, we receive a 30-day foreclosure notice. Please reconsider. I saved it as an archive. Did not respond. Tuesday morning is the mortgage due date. Mom sent a text at 9:15 a.m. The payment did not go through. They are imposing a $75 late fee. Thank you, Grant. I composed 3 different responses, deleted them all, and finally responded, Mom, I'm not paying. Figure it out. Dad texted 3 hours later. We withdrew from savings and made a payment this month, but we can't keep doing this. Then sell the house, I answered. You'd let us be homeless. You'd get the sale earnings, buy something smaller. You will not be homeless. There was no reaction after that. It's Wednesday afternoon. Email from Progressive Insurance. Auto policy for Jeep Wrangler. VIN, 1J4RW58N27C58942. Payment is past due. Policy will be canceled without payment on December 1st. Logan's automobile. I'd been paying for his insurance for 6 years, $14 per month. Another expense I had failed to cover. I forwarded the email to Dad with a single line. Logan's car insurance expires in 8 days. Not my problem. Thursday was Thanksgiving. Lila's family invited us to their home in Tempe. Her family includes her parents, 2 sisters, brother-in-law, and 3 nephews. It was normal, warm, and useful. People passed around meals and laughed. No one asked for money. Lila's mother asked me midway through supper, "How is your family, Grant? We aren't conversing right now." Her face fell. Oh no, what happened? I discontinued sponsoring my brother's life. They did not take it well. Lila's father looked up from slicing the turkey. Good on you, son. Boundaries are healthy. Family does not imply being a doormat. I realized I had never heard that before. The idea that saying no to relatives was acceptable. Expected even. Friday a.m. Logan sent a text. A new number. My phone got turned off. Did you really cancel my line? Yes. How am I expected to work? Pay for your own phone. I cannot afford it. Get a job. Pissed off. I blocked the new number. Monday, November 28th. Cousin Emily called during lunchtime. I almost didn't respond. Hello, Grant. I wanted to apologize for believing your mother's narrative without asking for your own. I saw the GoFundMe comment. Is this all true? $197,650. Yes, I do have receipts if you want to see them. Jesus, I had no idea. A long pause. Your father contacted me yesterday and asked if I might lend them $5,000. Quote, only till Logan gets to his feet. What have you said? I answered, no, I have 3 kids and a mortgage, but he made me feel bad, as if I was abandoning my family. That is his specialty. He is calling everyone. Grant, Aunt Margaret, Uncle Thomas, and my mother. He is traveling down the entire family tree, asking for money. The family was fracturing. I could feel it across the phone. Aunt Margaret sent an email on Tuesday. Grant, I am disappointed in you. Your parents are hurting, and you are being vengeful. This is not how families behave. I read it twice and did not answer. Uncle Daniel responded 10 minutes later. All Carol, Robert asked Grant for money for 6 years and got $197,650. Now Robert is asking us for money. When does it end? The problem isn't Grant. Aunt Margaret removed herself from the email discussion. Lila showed me her phone on Wednesday evening. Mother's Facebook post. Public. When your own child turns their back on you in your worst hour, you discover who you truly raised. I am praying for peace. 47 responses, a mix of support and confusion, with people wondering what occurred. Should I reply? I asked Lila. Do you want to? I want this to be over. Then let it pass. People who matter are aware of the truth. Thursday afternoon. Logan sent a text. Another new number. Dad sold his truck today. His 2020 F-150. I received $19,500 for it. He's now driving a 2006 Camry. Happy. Did he sell it to cover the mortgage payments? Yes, because you refused to help. He could sell the house and move where? When folks can't afford their current home, they move to an apartment, condo, or somewhere else that is less expensive. You are a callous piece of junk. You're 27 and have no employment. I blocked the third number. Friday, December 9th at 2:47 p.m. My phone buzzed while I was in a code review meeting. Email from Experian. Alert. A new credit inquiry was detected. Chase Sapphire preferred card. Grant Reed submitted an application. My blood ran cold. I excused myself from the meeting. I did not apply for a credit card. I hadn't applied for credit in 2 years. I logged into Experian. I pulled up the inquiry details. Application filed at 2:49 p.m. today, 12 minutes ago. The IP address is in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the annual income is indicated as $192,000, which is my exact salary. They knew because I had told them years before when they inquired about my advancement. They tried to open a credit card in my name. I called Lila. They did it. Identity theft. Call the cops. It's my father, Lila. I cannot. Grant, this is fraud. If you don't report it, you're responsible for whatever they charge. They might go all out. $25,000, $35,000. You'd be liable. I can't put him in jail. Then he'll do it again the next month and the month after that, until you become bankrupt. She was correct. I phoned Scottsdale Police's non-emergency line. Explained the situation. There was an effort at identity theft. Credit card application submitted in my name without my authorization. I suspected a family member but did not reveal names yet. All that was required was a police report number to file a dispute with the bank. A report was submitted. Case number, SC2022411762. Now comes the difficult part. I downloaded the police report, scanned it to PDF, and then started an email to Robert. CC, susan.reed@gmail.com. Subject, Fraud Alert Police Case SC2022411762. Dad, at 2:49 p.m., I received notification that someone attempted to open a Chase Sapphire credit card in my name, today, from a Scottsdale IP address. I have filed a police report for identity theft, attached. The bank has marked the application as fraudulent. This is a felony, punishable by up to 3 years in prison. If any other accounts are made in my name, I will provide the police the suspect's complete name and press charges. Grant, please do not test me. I've attached the PDF. Sent. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Dad is calling. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to it an hour later in my car. Dad's voice was broken and sobbing, which I had never heard from him before. We're desperate, Grant. We do not have any food. The refrigerator is empty. I apologize about the card. I wasn't sure what else to do. Please, only $100 for this week's food. I sat on the floor of my apartment that night, my back against the couch. I cried for 20 minutes straight. Not for them, but for me, and for my father, who used to carry me on his shoulders to the park. For the version of him that no longer exists, or may never have lived. But I didn't transfer the money since $100 meant identity theft the following month and the month after until there was nothing left. I needed to be the wall, not the entrance. Tuesday, December 13th. Aunt Elaine made a phone call. Mom has an older sibling. She was an accountant. I did taxes for half the household. Grant, I am in Phoenix for work. Can we meet? Is it about them? Yes, but not as you might expect. Starbucks, at Camelback Road. 4:30 p.m. Elaine was already present. Corner table. Manila packet in front of her. Sit. I sat. She passed the envelope across the table. The Internal Revenue Service is auditing your parents. What? The gallery. Your father claimed personal spending as corporate losses. Logan's car leasing, restaurant dinners, and Sedona trips. He claimed everything as business costs. Oh, my God. The total payable, including fines and interest, is $49,500. I felt nauseous. They're 3 months behind on their mortgage. The foreclosure notice was posted on the door last week. The IRS filed a lien on your father's store inventory. He is unable to sell anything without first paying them. Why are you telling me this? She stretched across the table to touch my hand. So, don't blame yourself if everything fails. Pause. I noticed your Facebook posts and receipts. I did the math. Grant. You provided them $197,650 over 6 years. You kept them afloat. You went above and beyond what any child should be expected to achieve. Tears filled my eyes. I did not blink. Let them sit there. They also lied to me, Elaine remarked. Told me you were affluent and stingy, that you refused to help out of spite, and that you had abandoned them over a little disagreement. I believe them. I apologize. What will happen now? They'll lose their house. They will lose the store. Probably bankrupt. Your father is talking to a lawyer. Can I, or should I, help them? No. Her voice was forceful. You save yourself. Get out. You are responsible for your own life. Do not look back at the explosion. She stood up, hugged me, and left the envelope on the table. I sat for an hour after she departed, staring at the IRS audit notice, the foreclosure letter, and the lien paperwork. The empire was disintegrating, and I wasn't there to see it. I felt nothing for the first time in 6 years when I thought about it. Just relief. 7 months later, I sat at the closing table, pen in hand. The realtor slid the final document over. With his signature, you are now a homeowner. Congratulations, Grant. I signed. Lila clasped my hand beneath the table. Craftsman home with 4 bedrooms in Tempe, $462,000. The down payment is 18%. I had saved $83,000 over the last 20 months. No assistance from anyone. We walked out onto the front porch. The house has good bones, including original hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, and a backyard with a lemon tree. How does it feel? Lila asked. Different. Good. Different. It has been 7 months since the birthday party. It has been 7 months since you have existed to pay for his dreams. It's been 32 weeks since I walked out of that kitchen and never looked back. I hadn't communicated with my parents since the identity theft email in December. There was no contact, no calls, texts, or attempts from either side, but I knew where they were. Small town dynamics. News spreads through family channels whether you want it to or not. Uncle Daniel kept me updated, even though I never asked. The residence sold in February for $395,000. They made $51,000 after paying off their mortgages, IRS debt, and lawyer fees. They moved into a 1-bedroom apartment near downtown Scottsdale for $1,350 per month. Dad obtained a job in Home Depot's garden department. Mom worked part-time at TJ Maxx, folding clothing and manning the register. Logan landed a job at the Apple store in January after Dad issued an ultimatum, work or get out. He was still there. Uncle Daniel claimed he despised it yet showed up. $18 per hour. He resided in Tempe with 2 roommates. Divide the rent in 3 ways. A. $650 per month. His Instagram account hadn't been updated in 3 months. I was promoted to staff engineer at Adobe in March. 2 $12,000 salaries. Purchased a house. Lila moved in last week. The engagement ring is concealed in my closet, behind the winter jackets. I plan to propose in Sedona next month. Everyone survived without my money. A month later, I was in Safeway in Scottsdale, picking up groceries before going to Lila's parents' house for supper. Cereal aisle. I reached for a box of Cheerios, turned the corner into the soup aisle, and froze. Mom and Dad are 18 feet distant, standing in front of the canned soup department. Dad grasped a can of store-brand tomato soup, frowning at the price. Mom opened a coupon booklet and flipped through the pages. They seemed smaller and older. Dad's shoulders bowed in a way I couldn't recall. Mom's hair had become more gray. I had 4 seconds to make a decision. Walk away. Say something. Pretend I didn't notice them. Before I could move, Dad looked up. You saw me. Time paused. 6 seconds of eye contact seemed like hours. His face changed expressions too quickly to read. Shame, remorse, and anger, all 3. Mom spotted him watching and followed his gaze. Her hand moved to her mouth. 12 seconds. Nobody moved. Then Mom stepped forward. Grant. Dad reached out, grabbed her arm, and gently stopped her. We met eyes. Father and son. 18 feet and 7 months of quiet between us. His expression said, I know what I did. I know why you left. Mine said, I'm not coming back. Dad nodded. A minor movement, scarcely discernible. I nodded back. Then he returned to the soup shelf. Mom followed his lead. They returned to examining labels and comparing prices as if I hadn't been there. I walked to the checkout, paid, and departed. Lila waited in the car, going through her phone. You okay? She inquired as to when I had arrived. You seem shaken. I saw them. She set down her phone. What happened? Nothing. We nodded to each other. That is it. That is it. How are you feeling? Sad but resolved. She started the car. We drove to her parents' home. I did not mention it again. 7 months taught me lessons I did not want to learn. Logan was still at the Apple store. Uncle Daniel met him at a coffee shop last month. He said he looked fatigued yet showed up for his shifts. I was written up twice for attitude problems with customers but was not dismissed. $18 per hour, 2 roommates, $650 rent. His photographic equipment was advertised on Craigslist. There are no buyers yet. Aunt Elaine added that he had applied to community college for a photography program with a Pell Grant. Perhaps he was learning. Mom worked at TJ Maxx for 25 hours a week, folding shirts and operating the register. Aunt Elaine met her there last month and claimed she was lighter, as if the weight of keeping up appearances had vanished. She began selling little watercolor paintings at the weekend farmers market for $15 each. She saved the money for herself. Dad worked in Home Depot's garden department, helped customers put mulch bags into trucks, received an employee discount. Uncle Daniel stated he appeared humble the last time they spoke. I drove a 2006 Camry with 172,000 meters. It ran. They were surviving without me. Not prospering, not destroyed. Simply existing as regular folks with typical difficulties. Normal employment, normal budgets, normal lifestyles. I'm a staff engineer with a $218,000 income and a lemon tree in my residence. Lila has an engagement ring in the closet, a savings account that grows every month, a retirement fund on track, a moderate stress level, and no one has contacted to ask for money. Another month has passed. Lila and I sat on our new back patio, string lights hanging overhead, and 2 glasses of wine on the table between us. Do you regret it? She asked. Sometimes. Late at night, I reflect on the holidays we will not share. If we have grandchildren, they won't get to meet them. But then I remembered what he had said. You exist to pay for his dreams. It still hurts. It does, but it was honest. For the first time, he explained exactly what my job was, and I had a choice: accept or reject it. You rejected it. I picked myself. We sat in quiet for 1 minute. The string lights reflected in her wineglass. They're learning to survive without me, I explained. Dad is working. Mom is working. Logan is working. That is not destruction. That is growth. 30 years later. But still growing. Do you think you can ever reconcile? Perhaps years from now, if they admit what happened. It is not necessary to apologize. Simply admit it. And if they don't, I got this. I indicated to the house, to her, and to the lemon tree in the backyard. I built it with my money, my efforts, and my choices. Nobody can convince me that I exist solely to fulfill the dreams of others. Lila grinned, reached over, and held my hand, because I am living on my own. The string lights flashed overhead. The lemon tree rustled in the breeze. In the distance, a dog barked, and for the first time in 6 years, I felt able to breathe. In-laws mocked me at the party. I listened for 2 hours. They bragged about their jobs at my company. I smiled. I'm the CEO. Monday morning, they were fired. When I arrived at my sister's engagement party, the groom's family mocked me, gloating about their positions at a prominent organization while entirely unaware that I am the owner of the same company. Their arrogance was about to cost them everything. On a Tuesday afternoon, the invitation arrived in cream-colored cardstock with gold lettering, announcing my younger sister Clara's engagement to Julian Thorne. I stared at it for a long time, realizing I had no idea she was dating anybody seriously. Our connection had strained over the last few years, but I couldn't pinpoint when the distance between us began to widen. I traced my finger over the embossed letters, feeling the burden of responsibility fall on my shoulders. Despite everything, she remained my sister. The celebration was arranged for a Saturday evening 4 weeks from now at the Grandview Country Club, a site where old money went to remind everyone else of their status in the world. Natalie, my assistant, knocked on my office door, bearing yet another stack of acquisition bids. She hesitated when she noticed the invitation on my desk. Family event? She inquired, her tone remaining neutral. Natalie had been working with me for 8 years and knew more about my personal life than most people. My sister's getting engaged. I responded, slipping the invitation into my desk drawer. I should probably make an appearance. Natalie lifted an eyebrow and said nothing. She simply set the offers on my desk and left me to think. The thing about running a corporation is that you are rarely seen. They recognize the company name. They understand the items. They understand the quarterly profit reports. However, most employees have no idea who makes choices on the top floor. I preferred it that way. Meridian Technologies began 14 years ago in a tiny department with only a laptop and an idea that everyone predicted would fail. We now employ over 18,000 individuals across North America and specialize in software solutions for healthcare systems. The company went public 5 years ago, making me wealthier than I could have imagined growing up in our humble suburban household. But I still drove the same Honda that I bought 7 years earlier, lived in a decent but ordinary townhouse, and arrived at work dressed in simple business apparel that might have come from any department shop. My mother, Margaret, contacted me that evening, her voice filled with artificial joy. "You received the invitation. You're coming, correct? Clara will be very pleased to see you." I doubted it, but I kept my thoughts to myself. "Yes, I will be there." Wonderful. The Thorns are a great family. Julian works for a large technological company, which his parents describe as very successful. They are pretty proud of him. Something about her tone made me hesitate. "Which company?" "Oh, I don't remember the name. Something involving Meridian." "No, it is not correct. Meridian something. You know how I feel about these technology corporations." My hand squeezed around the phone. "Meridian Technology. That is it. You've heard about them. Julian is allegedly fairly high up there. Senior something or another. When we met with his parents for supper last month, they told us everything about it." I closed my eyes and processed this information. Meridian Technologies employed nearly 400 people with senior titles across multiple areas. Without Julian's last name or precise function, I couldn't place him right away, but I made a mental point to dig into it before Saturday. "That's pleasant," I managed to say. "I will see you on Saturday, Mom." After hanging up, I spent 25 minutes scanning our employee database. There were 3 Julians in the company, but only one Thorn. Julian Thorn is a senior project manager in the healthcare integration division. His employee photo depicted an attractive man in his mid-30s with neatly styled dark hair and a confident, almost smug smile. I studied the photograph, memorizing his features so I could recognize him at the party. His performance reviews were adequate but not remarkable. He fulfilled deadlines, managed his crew without complaint, and produced work that was competent but uninspired. Several notes revealed that he was better at presenting ideas than really carrying them out, relying primarily on his team to handle the technical intricacies while he focused on client-facing interactions. What piqued my interest was a complaint filed 9 months ago by a female developer on his team, who claimed that Julian grabbed credit for her code optimization efforts at a customer presentation. HR investigated the allegation, which resulted in a formal warning in his file, as well as mandatory professional conduct training. Nothing to justify firing, but enough to convey a picture of someone more concerned with appearances than content. 4 weeks felt both lengthy and too short. I had enough time to mentally prepare for the gathering, but not enough time to completely comprehend what it may mean to see my sister in this new environment. Engaged to someone who worked in my firm but had no idea who I was. Saturday brought beautiful spring weather, sunny and warm without being uncomfortable. I wore a simple navy dress with modest jewelry and tied my hair back in a nice ponytail. Nothing about my appearance indicated wealth or power. I appeared to be a middle management candidate at a decent but forgettable company. The Grandview Country Club lived up to their reputation. All manicured landscapes and beautiful structures are intended to dazzle without appearing extravagant. I parked my Honda between a Mercedes and a BMW, slightly amused by how out of place my practical car appeared. Inside, a server took me to the private event room, where the celebration was already well underway. I quickly recognized my mother, and her expression lit up when she saw me. She rushed over, pulling me into an embrace that felt both sincere and staged. "You arrived. Come meet the Thorns, they are amazing individuals." She led me across the room to a well-dressed couple standing with crystal champagne flutes. The man was tall and broad-shouldered, presumably in his early 60s, with silver hair and the demeanor of someone who had never considered his place in the world. The woman next him was well-dressed, with blonde hair combed in a way that most likely required a regular appointment at an expensive salon. "This is my other daughter," my mother continued, her voice carrying a sound I couldn't recognize. "This is Eleanor." The woman, who I believed was Julian's mother, offered a nicely manicured hand. "Vivian Thorn, how nice to meet you. And this is my spouse, Charles." Charles' handshake was forceful and bordering on hostile. "Good to meet you, Eleanor. What are you doing?" It was the unavoidable question at events like this, the first step in creating social hierarchy. "I work in technology," I explained simply. "Oh, how fascinating." Vivian's tone indicated that it was everything but. "What kind of role? Which company?" "The majority of my work involves systems administration. A minor healthcare technology firm based in Boston." Nothing you'd heard of. It was not technically a lie. I did manage systems, but on a much greater scale than she imagined. Meridian Technologies was not small, but I phrased it to seem modest. Charles nodded, his attention diminishing. "Good, stable field. Julian is also a technology professional, working as a senior project manager for Meridian Technologies. Perhaps you've heard about it." "I have," I responded, sipping the champagne that a waitress had handed me. "It is a respectable company." Charles laughed loudly, attracting the attention of neighboring guests. "It is one of the most successful technological firms in North America. Julian's sector alone handles multi-million-dollar contracts." "Charles is modest," Vivian explained, resting her hand on her husband's arm. "Julian has been influential in several important purchases. The executive team leans significantly on him. They've mentioned that a VP post will open up soon. I almost choked on my champagne. There was no VP post open in Julian's division, and his function, while essential, was not critical to major acquisitions. This level of decision-making occurred several floors above his pay grade. How impressive, I responded, my tone bland. My mother appeared at my elbow, visibly frightened. Eleanor works extremely hard at her profession. She has done fairly well for herself. Vivian's smile was pleasant yet disdainful. I'm certain she has. Nowadays, technology provides numerous opportunities, including for those in support professions. However, the assumption stung. I preserved a nice expression. Clara appeared before I could react, accompanied by Julian. My sister looked stunning in a cream-colored dress, with dark hair cascading over her shoulders. Eleanor, I had always been the bookish elder sister who spent more time with computers than people, and she had always been the gorgeous, gregarious one. She hugged me, but the embrace felt stiff. I am so delighted you were able to make it. This is Julian. Julian shook my hand with the same assertive strength as his father. Up close, he appeared more polished than his employee headshot indicated. Everything about him was designed to convey prosperity and confidence. Clara's sister. Finally, he replied, she's told me about you. His tone indicated that what she told him was not particularly favorable. Are you also in technology? He continued. Which company? A smaller corporation, I faintly stated. Nothing as spectacular as Meridian Technologies. Well, if you ever need career guidance or networking possibilities, please contact me. I have ties throughout the industry. I'm always happy to help family. His smile was generous, like someone offering alms to a lower relative. Charles clapped his son's shoulder. Julian is being humble. His network is broad. He has personal acquaintances with several executives at large corporations and has attended dinners, golf excursions, and other events with them. I wondered if Charles was aware that the executives Julian golfed with were likely other senior managers, impressive to those outside the business but nowhere near the actual C-suite. I just nodded pleasantly. The afternoon continued in much the same way. The Thorns conducted court, regaling anybody who listened with anecdotes about Julian's accomplishments and the family's link to success. My mother and father, Thomas, lingered anxiously, apparently attempting to match the Thorn family's intensity but falling short in their subtle way. I was standing near the dessert table when Vivian approached her champagne flute, which had been refilled for what seemed like the fourth time. Eleanor, I hope you don't feel inadequate in the face of Julian's successes. Not everyone is capable of excelling in their career. Dignity and honest work exist at all levels. I sat down with my dish of cake, taking a moment to consider my response. I appreciate your concern, but I am really content with my situation. Of course, she touched my arm in patronizing manner. Clara commented, you were always the studious kind, immersed in books and computers. Some people are designed to lead, while others are made to follow. Both are vital. The impulse to reprimand her was tremendous, but I suppressed it. Something about the evening's dynamics was becoming evident. Clara had portrayed her older sister as the unsuccessful one, a socially awkward computer professional who couldn't compete with her own success in finding a husband. My father approached me a few minutes later, his face disturbed. Are you okay? I understand Vivian can be a bit much. It was a little overly charitable. I'm all right, father. Simply taking it all in. He squeezed my shoulder. Your mother and I are proud of you. We may not always comprehend what you do, but we do know how hard you work. The real affection in his voice caused my throat to knot. My parents had always been supportive, even when they didn't completely understand the scope of what I'd accomplished. I'd kept the details vague because I didn't want them to approach me differently or be concerned that my success had changed me. As the celebration began to wind down, Charles cornered me near the exit, his face flushed with booze and self-importance. Eleanor, before you leave, I wanted to give you some advice. Julian noted that Meridian Technologies is seeking for administrative positions. I could have him say something for you. It would be a step up from your current position, and you'd be working for a prestigious corporation. The offer was so insulting and arrogant that I nearly laughed. Instead, I smiled sweetly. That is extremely kind, but I am content where I am. Do not be silly. Opportunities like this don't come around very frequently. You're not getting any younger, and having a connection with someone like Julian may transform your life. He slipped a business card into my hand. Think about it. Call him next week, and he will schedule an interview. I looked down at the card. Julian Thorn, Senior Project Manager at Meridian Technologies, my company. My business card had no title, simply my name and a direct phone number that only a few people could reach. I will think about it, I answered, sliding the card into my purse. Clara walked me out, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Thank you for attending. I understand this isn't your scene, I said gently. The Thorn family seemed very proud of Julian. She grinned, but not with her eyes. Yes, they are. And, frankly, after years of mom comparing me to you and your accomplishments, it's good to finally have something to be proud of. The comment landed like a slap. Mom often compared you to me. Eleanor is very focused. Eleanor is very driven. Eleanor is doing quite well in her career. It got old, honestly. But now I have Julian, and his family values what I contribute to the table. I wanted to tell her that our mother's satisfaction in my job did not decrease her own worth, and that the comparison was harmful and unneeded. But the words remained in my throat, caught by years of isolation and misunderstanding. I hope you're pleased, Clara. That is all that matters. She kissed my cheek, her perfume overpowering. I will be. Julian is going to be VP soon. Perhaps one day I'll be an executive. We are going to have everything. I drove home in quiet, my mind whirling over the evening's events. The Thorns' hubris was one thing, Julian's overblown sense of self-importance was another example, but Clara's animosity went deeper than I had anticipated. As is customary on Monday mornings, I arrived at work early. Natalie had already set up my schedule and placed a fresh pot of coffee in the break room next to my office. "How was your engagement party?" she inquired when she arrived an hour later. "Enlightening," I murmured, looking at Julian Thorn's business card on my desk. "Set up a meeting with HR for this afternoon. I need to discuss personnel issues in the healthcare integration section." Natalie made a note but did not ask any questions. She knew better. Helen Crawford, the HR director, arrived at 3:30 with Julian Thorn's complete employment file. We'd been working together for 6 years, and she helped me manage several complex personnel problems with discretion and skill. "Julian Thorn," she remarked as she settled into the chair opposite from my desk. "You're interested in him especially. His family attended my sister's engagement party. They had some fascinating observations on his role here." Helen's expression became sharper. "I see. Would you like me to summarize his employment history?" She opened the file and flipped through the documents. Hired 5 years ago as a project manager and elevated to senior project manager 20 months later. Performance reviews are usually average to above average. He is terrific with clients and presents effectively, however the substance of the presentation is frequently delivered by his team members. Emily Chen, one of his coders, filed a complaint 9 months ago. She implemented a big code optimization that lowered processing time by 35% on a key client project. Julian presented it as his own idea without crediting Emily. She submitted an official complaint. We investigated, found her charges plausible, and issued Julian a written warning, as well as mandatory professional behavior training. How did he respond to the warning? Helen pushed her lips into a thin line. Not well. He thought it was overdone and attributed it to a misunderstanding of team versus individual efforts. His demeanor during the discussion was defensive and dismissive, but he finished the course and has not made any official complaints since. Are there any informal complaints? She paused. Nothing was documented, but his team's anonymous satisfaction poll revealed that morale had declined during the previous year. Several people commented about feeling undervalued or having their efforts underestimated. Nothing actionable, but troubling. I leaned back in my chair to assimilate this knowledge. What is your professional assessment of him? Helen picked her words carefully. Julian Thorn is an experienced manager who understands company dynamics and client connections. However, his leadership abilities are questionable, and his tendency to favor personal success over team development is troublesome. He's not someone I'd recommend for higher-level leadership jobs without much professional development. Nevertheless, he has been informing people that he is being considered for a VP job. Her eyebrows raised. That is simply false. There are no VP positions available in his division, and even if there were, he would not be on the short list based on his current performance and leadership criteria. I nodded slowly as parts clicked into place. I'd like you to perform a thorough study of his division, not focusing on him individually, but rather assessing team chemistry, project management, effectiveness, and employee happiness. Can you do that discreetly? Absolutely. When would you like your report? 3 weeks. After Helen left, I sat alone in my office, watching the sun sink over the city. The floor-to-ceiling windows provided a panorama of downtown stretching to the horizon. Buildings began to light up as the evening neared. I created this from nothing. Overcome numerous challenges and naysayers who thought a woman in her 20s couldn't transform healthcare software. And now my own sister resents me for it, while her prospective in-laws have volunteered to assist me acquire an entry-level position at my own company. The irony would have been amusing if it hadn't hurt so badly. My phone vibrated with an email notice. It came from Emily Chen, the developer who had filed the complaint against Julian months before. She was requesting a transfer to another team within the healthcare integration division. The email was written professionally, but I could read between the lines. Despite the formal warning and training, working under Julian was still difficult for her. I forwarded the email to Helen, adding a note to expedite the transfer request and to personally check in with Emily about her experience since the complaint. Talented developers were the foundation of our organization, and losing them due to poor management was intolerable. Another email grabbed my attention. This is from Julian himself. It was addressed to many clients, copied to his direct boss, and detailed future project milestones. The wording was professional enough, But there was a subtle inflation of his authority in phrases like my strategic oversight and under my direction, implying sole control rather than shared leadership. I also shared this to Helen, adding it to the increasing paperwork that would be used to inform our 8-month performance evaluation. Individual emails were not damaging, but patterns revealed information that single events could not. Natalie knocked on my door, about to go for the evening. Is there anything more you need? Actually, yes. Set a company-wide town hall for 4 weeks from now. Video conferencing is used to connect all divisions and locations. I believe it is time for people to learn who runs Meridian Technologies. Her eyes widened slightly. In 8 years, I'd never held a company-wide town hall. I preferred written communications and divisional meetings presided over by department heads. But something about the past weekend made me realize that, while my anonymity was comfortable, it had caused problems I hadn't anticipated. I will make arrangements. Natalie discussed any specific agenda items, strategic vision, upcoming initiatives, and a reminder of our company values, particularly those pertaining to professional conduct and team recognition. Helen's report painted a troubling picture over the course of 3 weeks. While Julian's division met its goals and maintained client relationships, internal morale was low. Multiple team members reported that Julian did not acknowledge their contributions, frequently presenting their work as his own during meetings and presentations. The pattern was subtle enough to avoid formal complaints, while pervasive enough to foster a toxic environment in which people felt undervalued. More concerning was evidence that Julian had overstated his role and authority when speaking with clients. In one email, he described himself as the executive in charge of strategic healthcare integration initiatives. A title and responsibility did not exist. Another showed him promising a client direct access to executive decision-makers for project modifications, which was well beyond his authority. My mother called back on the Friday before the town hall meeting. Clara wanted to know if you had thought about Julian's offer to help you get a job at his company. She mentioned that you appeared hesitant at the party. I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling a headache develop. Mom, I do not need Julian's assistance with my career. I know you are self-sufficient, sweetheart, but it is acceptable to accept assistance from family members on occasion. Julian has connections that could really help you. There's no shame in it. Mom, I am financially secure and satisfied with my job. Please tell Clara that I appreciate the offer, but I am not interested. There was a pause. You know, I sometimes wonder if your pride stands in the way of opportunities. Clara is just trying to help. The comment irritated me, but I kept my voice level. It is not about pride. I am genuinely pleased with where I am professionally. After hanging up, I stared at my computer screen, attempting to concentrate on quarterly projections, but my mother's words echoed in my head. Pride. As if refusing Julian's condescending offer to secure me an entry-level position at my own company was motivated by ego rather than reality. I opened the company organizational chart on my monitor, and traced the hierarchy from my position at the top to the various divisions and departments. Julian's name appeared as a small note among hundreds of senior managers, each in charge of their own team and project. He was a useful part of the machine, but not the critical component that his family thought he was. What bothered me the most wasn't Julian's inflated self-esteem or his parents' obnoxious boasting. It was how easily my own family accepted the narrative that I needed help with my supposedly mediocre career. That hurt more than any insult the thorns could have given. But my thoughts kept returning to the fundamental difference between my reality and my family's perception of it. I kept quiet about my success because I wanted to stay grounded and avoid the complications that come with wealth and power. However, the silence had left a void filled with assumptions and misunderstandings. The town hall meeting was scheduled for Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Every employee was required to attend, either in person or via video conference. The main floor auditorium could accommodate approximately 600 people, with thousands more joining remotely via satellite offices and home workstations. I arrived early and reviewed my notes in a small preparation room next to the auditorium. Natalie had worked with it to ensure that the video feeds were crystal clear, and the communications team had created presentation slides, highlighting the company's achievements and strategic goals. At 9:30, I stepped onto the stage, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes on me. The auditorium was packed, with people standing in the back as seats ran out. On the screens flanking the stage, I could see thumbnails of video conference participants, a sea of faces watching and waiting. I stepped up to the podium and adjusted the microphone. Good morning. I'm Eleanor Wright, the founder and CEO of Meridian Technologies. The reaction was immediate. Whispers spread throughout the auditorium. People are leaning toward each other in surprise. On the video screens, I noticed participants unmuting to express shock before quickly muting back. I smiled slightly. I understand that many of you have never seen me in person. I've preferred to work behind the scenes, concentrating on strategy and development rather than public relations. But recent events have made me realize that, while anonymity is convenient, it can lead to misunderstandings about who we are as a company and what we value. I spent the next 25 minutes outlining our strategic vision, talking about upcoming product launches and expansion plans. I discussed our dedication to innovation, treating employees fairly, and upholding the highest standards of professional behavior. I went on to say that recognition is one of our core values. When someone on your team does exceptional work, they deserve recognition. Innovation rarely stems from a single individual. It is collaborative, relying on the contributions of numerous talented individuals working together. As leaders in this company, we must ensure that those contributions are recognized and celebrated. I paused to let it sink in. Several people in the audience nodded, and I noticed some looking around for colleagues who might need to hear this message. To that end, I am announcing a new initiative. Starting next quarter, we'll roll out a peer recognition program in which team members can nominate colleagues whose work has had a significant impact. These nominations will be reviewed by department heads and myself, and outstanding contributors will be recognized throughout the organization with both acknowledgement and financial incentives. The applause was enthusiastic. People appreciated being seen and valued, and this program would put in place a structure to ensure that happens systematically rather than haphazardly. After the town hall, I navigated my way back to my office through a maze of surprised employees. Several people approached me to introduce themselves, express their gratitude for the recognition program, or ask questions about the company's direction. It was exhausting but necessary, serving as a reminder that leadership required both visibility and vision. Natalie waited in my office with a knowing smile. It went well. Your inbox is already full of positive responses from employees. Good. Set up meetings with all division heads for next week. I'd like to discuss the recognition program's implementation and any concerns they have about team dynamics in their respective departments. She took notes, then paused. There's one more thing. Julian Thorne has requested an urgent meeting with you this afternoon. He appears quite agitated. I checked my watch. Give him 4 o'clock. Julian arrived right on time, his usual confidence replaced by barely concealed panic. He clearly expected to meet with someone he could charm or manipulate, only to find out that the CEO he'd been exaggerating his importance to was his fiancée's sister, Eleanor. Miss Wright, I wanted to, that is, I hope we can discuss. He stopped to regroup. I was not aware you were the CEO. Clearly, I said, gesturing toward the chair across from my desk. Please sit down. He sat with his posture rigid. I believe there may have been some misunderstandings at the engagement party. My parents can be enthusiastic about my career, and they occasionally exaggerate. Your parents told me you were being considered for a VP position and had played a key role in major company acquisitions. Were those exaggerations, or did you actually tell them those things? His cheeks flushed. I may have oversimplified some points in conversation. You're familiar with the dynamics of family relationships. They want to feel proud. So, you focus on the positive aspects of your role, oversimplified. I repeated, Julian, you are a senior project manager. That is a respectable position that demands skill and dedication, but you are not involved in acquisitions. You're not being considered for VP positions, and you're certainly not in a position to provide me with career advice or connections within my own company. I understand how that must have looked. I apologize. The concern is not just how it appeared to me, it is how you present yourself to clients, your team, and other professionals in the industry. I reviewed your file, including Emily Chen's complaint and any patterns of behavior that have emerged since then. His jaw tightened. The complaint was resolved. I finished the required training. Completing training does not equate to changing behavior. Your team's satisfaction scores have steadily declined over the last year. Multiple people believe their contributions are overlooked while you take credit during presentations. That isn't acceptable leadership. Leading a team entails presenting their work effectively. That is literally my job. Leading a team entails elevating their work and recognizing their contributions. There is a significant difference between presenting collaborative efforts and taking individual credit for others' innovations. Julian leaned forwards, his expression hardening. Is this really about my professional behavior, or about your sister? Because, from where I sit, this feels personal. My relationship with Clara is complicated, but it is unrelated to this conversation. If you weren't marrying my sister, we'd still be having this meeting based on the review results. He rose abruptly. So, what happens next? Will you fire me to ruin my engagement? Sit down, Julian. My voice carried enough authority that he obeyed instinctively. I am not firing you. Despite your inflated sense of self-importance, you haven't done anything to merit termination. You're good at your job. What happens after you meet your targets and your clients are satisfied? You will spend the next 8 months in an intensive leadership development program. It is entirely voluntary, but declining will be noted in your file, and will have an impact on future opportunities for advancement. The program emphasizes authentic leadership, team development, and ethical professional conduct. His face was mutinous, but he nodded slowly. Fine. Additionally, beginning next month, your performance reviews will include 270 degrees feedback from your team members. When evaluating your work, their assessments will be weighted equally with client satisfaction metrics. If team morale and recognition patterns do not improve within 8 months, we will need to rethink your future here. Is this because of the engagement party? You're punishing me because I had no idea who you were. I leaned back in my chair and studied him. Julian, I honestly don't mind that you didn't recognize me. I've deliberately kept a low profile. What concerns me is the pattern of behavior revealed through routine evaluation. The engagement party simply served as a catalyst for me to investigate division dynamics further. However, if you were not engaged to my sister, we would still be having this conversation. The difference is that it won't feel personal to you. You'd accept the feedback, participate in the development program, and work on improving your leadership abilities without assuming it was for anything other than professional development. He was silent for a long time. What will you tell me, Clara? Nothing. What happens between you and my sister is your business, but I would recommend being open and honest with her and your parents about your actual role here and your realistic career path. The exaggerations will eventually catch up with you, so it's best to control the narrative yourself. After Julian left, I sat alone in my office as dusk fell over the city. The confrontation had been necessary but unsatisfactory. I had addressed the professional issues, set clear expectations, and provided a path forward, but the personal dynamics remained unresolved, entwined in years of miscommunication and self-doubt. Clara had sent me a text message. Julian responded, "You two had a meeting. Is everything okay?" I stared at the message, unsure of how to respond. I eventually typed, "Just routine company business." "There's nothing to worry about." Her response was quick. He appeared upset when he arrived home. "Are you sure everything is okay?" "Positive." "How's the wedding planning going?" "Cuh." The deflection worked. She went into detail about the venues and catering options. The conversation was safely redirected into neutral territory. That weekend, my parents invited me to a dinner. I arrived to find them alone, with Clara noticeably absent. My mother explained that she is with Julian and his family, setting the table with plates. They are finalizing some wedding details. We ate in peaceful silence for a while before my father spoke. "Your mother informed me of the conversation regarding Julian's job offer. We wanted to talk with you about something." I set down my fork and braced myself. "We realized we'd never truly understood what you do," he continued. "We know you work in technology and are successful, but the details have always been vague. We assumed that meant you preferred not to discuss it, so we didn't push." My mother nodded. But after the engagement party, as Charles and Vivian discussed Julian's career and we could only vaguely describe yours, I began to wonder if we'd made a mistake. If our lack of understanding had somehow diminished your accomplishments in Clara's eyes. The observation was so unexpectedly insightful that I felt my throat tighten. "I founded Meridian Technologies 14 years ago," I explained quietly. "I am the CEO and majority shareholder. The company has over 18,000 employees and generates billions of dollars in revenue each year. Julian works for me as a senior project manager." My mother's fork clattered on her plate. "You're Meridian Technologies CEO." "Yes." My father sat back, his face stunned. "Why haven't you told us?" "Initially, I was too preoccupied with building the company to think about anything else. Then later, because I didn't want it to alter your perception of me or my own. I am still the same person I was before the company became successful. The money and title do not define who I am." "But, sweetheart," my mother said, her voice full of emotion. "We're very proud of you. We were always proud, but we had no idea how much you'd accomplished." "I know, and I should have stated it more clearly. I just wanted to be your daughter, not some wealthy CEO who made things awkward at family gatherings." My father reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You've always been our daughter, but we've apparently done you a disservice by failing to understand or appreciate what you've accomplished. And we may have unintentionally made Clara feel as if she had to compete with some hazy, undefined success to which she couldn't live up." The accuracy of that assessment stung. I never wanted her to feel this way. "We understand, but intentions and impact do not always coincide," my mother said, wiping her eyes. "What happens now that Julian is working for you and everything? There is nothing dramatic. He needs to improve his leadership skills, and I've put in place structures to help him do so. Whether or not he succeeds is entirely up to him. That is between you and Clara. I will not interfere with her relationship or happiness, but she should know who you are." My father said she should understand what you've accomplished, not because it diminishes her own accomplishments, but because she deserves to see an accurate picture of her own sister. Maybe, but I'm not sure how to have that conversation without coming across as if I'm trying to prove something or one-up her in some way. We finished dinner talking about safer topics, but the weight of revelation hung in the air. My parents now had a full understanding of my professional life, which felt both liberating and terrifying. The following week, we settled into a new rhythm. The recognition program received an enthusiastic response, with hundreds of nominations flooding in during the first cycle. Julian participated in his leadership development program, with grudging compliance rather than obvious enthusiasm. His team's feedback scores improved marginally, but it was unclear whether this was due to genuine change or simply better perception management. Clara and I kept a polite distance, occasionally texting about wedding details but never discussing the underlying tensions. She appeared to enjoy posting photos of Julian and their activities, as if she were carefully curating a specific narrative about their lives. 3 months after the town hall, my mother called with some news. Clara wishes to have lunch with you, just the two of you. She stated that she would like to discuss certain topics. We met at a quiet bistro on a Tuesday afternoon, and we both arrived on time. Clara looked stunning as usual, but there was a tightness around her eyes that suggested she hadn't slept much. She said, "Thank you for meeting me after we ordered. I know things have been weird between us." They have, I agreed, and there is no point pretending otherwise. Mom told me about Meridian Technologies and you as the CEO. She twisted the napkin between her fingers. Julian returned home from your company town hall 4 weeks ago, looking as if he had seen a ghost. He told me everything. I've spent the last week trying to decide what to say to you. You don't need to say anything. Actually, I do, because I've been an idiot and owe you an apology. She looked into my eyes, her expression vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen since we were children. For years, I resented you for being smarter, more focused, and more successful in everything you attempted. Mom and Dad would talk about your career with such pride in their voices, and I felt like I'd never measure up. Clara, please let me finish. She took a shaky breath. When I met Julian and his parents started talking about how successful he was and how important his position was at this major company, I finally felt like I had something to be proud of. Something that would put me on par with you in Mom and Dad's eyes. And then I discovered that you own the company where Julian works, and that everything his parents brag about is inflated nonsense. And the person I was trying to compete with was so far beyond my expectations that the comparison was laughable. You were never in competition with me, I explained softly. I never wanted that. I understand. That's what makes things worse. You didn't even try to outdo me. You were simply living your life and creating something incredible, whereas I was determining my worth by whether I could find a guy with an impressive job title. She laughed bitterly. The wedding is in 8 months, and I'm sitting here wondering whether I'm marrying Julian because I love him or to prove something to everyone. The candor in her confession took my breath away. Do you love him? She was silent for a long time. I don't know anymore. I thought I did, but I saw how he reacted when he found out you were his boss, how angry he was that his parents had embarrassed him, and how he tried to spin it as if you were targeting him unfairly for personal reasons. It revealed sides of him that I had been ignoring. What are you planning to do? I do not know. Part of me wants to cancel the wedding, but I wonder if I'm just running away because I'm embarrassed. Another part believes we can work through this because everyone has flaws, and marriage is about acceptance. She met my gaze. What would you do? I can't answer that for you, but I can say that you deserve someone who encourages you rather than makes you feel like you have to compete. Someone who is confident enough in themselves that they do not need to exaggerate their importance or take credit for others' efforts. Someone who recognizes your worth regardless of how it reflects on them. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I've been terrible to you for years, and you're still sitting here giving me advice without judging me for being such a mess. You are my sister. I love you even when we aren't close and when we hurt each other. I reached across the table to take her hand, and, for what it's worth, I apologize for not being more open about my personal life. I thought keeping things private would prevent complications, but it only created distance and misunderstanding. I should have trusted you with the truth. I should have asked. I should have been more interested in your life rather than being preoccupied with my own insecurities. She squeezed my hand. Could we start over? Not forget everything that happened, but strive to create something better. I'd like that. We spent the next hour talking more freely than we had in years. She told me about her job as a marketing coordinator at a nonprofit organization, which she genuinely enjoyed but dismissed as unimpressive in comparison to what she imagined I was doing. I told her about the loneliness that can come with success. The higher I climbed professionally, the more difficult it became to maintain genuine relationships with people who did not want anything from me. Julian will need to make significant changes if he wants to keep his job. I stated that the leadership development program would not be used as punishment in the long run. It's a genuine opportunity for development, but he must want to change. And if he doesn't, he'll have to look for another job, either in a different division where his management style might be more appropriate or at a completely different company. I will not jeopardize the well-being of an entire team to accommodate someone who refuses to grow. Clara nodded slowly. That is fair. It's more than fair. I will support you in whatever you need to do professionally, and I will determine what I need to do personally. 4 months later, I got a text from Clara. Wedding was postponed indefinitely. Taking the time to figure out what I really want. Thank you for being honest with me. Julian finished his leadership development program with mixed results. His team feedback scores improved slightly, but exit interviews with 2 developers who left his division cited his management style as a factor in their departure. After his 8-month review revealed insufficient progress, I approved his transfer to a project coordinator position in a different division, a lateral move that removed him from direct team leadership but kept him employed. He resigned 3 weeks later, citing greater opportunities elsewhere. Julian Thorne's tenure at Meridian Technologies came to an end after I quietly approved his departure. Clara and I began eating lunch together on a regular basis, establishing the relationship we should have had from the start. She eventually ended her engagement to Julian, a decision she made on her own after months of reflection and therapy. The last I heard, she was dating someone who worked in environmental conservation, and he seemed genuinely interested in supporting her dreams rather than using her to boost his own image. My parents gained a better understanding of my professional life, but I still avoided discussing business during family dinners. The difference was that instead of making vague references to Eleanor's computer work, they asked informed questions and demonstrated genuine interest. Meridian Technologies' recognition program became one of our most successful initiatives, with employee satisfaction scores steadily increasing as people felt valued and acknowledged for their contributions. Emily Chen, the developer who filed the original complaint, received one of the first recognition awards for her code optimization efforts, which included a financial bonus and company-wide acknowledgement of her innovation. As for me, I stayed mostly behind the scenes, enjoying my anonymity while maintaining the visibility required to lead effectively. The town hall had served its purpose by reminding everyone that leadership required both vision and accountability, and that titles were meaningless without substance to back them up. The engagement party seemed like a lifetime ago that evening, when arrogance and assumption collided with reality in the most awkward way possible. However, it forced necessary conversations, revealed truths, and ultimately strengthened relationships that had weakened due to miscommunication and unspoken resentment. Sometimes the most important revelations come not from dramatic confrontations, but from simply being willing to show people who you truly are and trusting them to handle the truth graciously. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't dramatic at all, it's watching people realize that their own assumptions were to blame for their downfall while you simply continued to be yourself. The Thorns never knew the whole truth about my identity. As far as I knew, Julian was not going to enlighten them, and I had no desire for that kind of satisfaction. Their opinions of me, whether inflated or diminished, were irrelevant to my true worth. What mattered was that my sister and I had reconnected, that my company continued to treat employees with dignity and fairness, and that I could still drive my modest Honda to work every morning. CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, secure in the knowledge that success was measured not by what others thought of me, but by what I had built and how I treated people along the way. That was enough to exact revenge.